Sometimes, life takes us places we never saw coming. It all started with a light in the sky. A light that kept getting closer and closer until it crashed right in front of me. Yeah. A spaceship. But not just any spaceship, its pilot wasn't from our world. And from that moment on, everything changed, for me, and for everyone around me. My name is Izuku Midoriya. And this is a brand new chapter in my life. Welcome to part 1 of What If Deku Was Trained by a Jedi. Chapter 1, Crash Landing. The hum of the hyperdrive faded, replaced by a terrifying silence punctuated only by the groan of stressed metal. Anakin Skywalker stared blankly at the flickering console, his hand instinctively reaching for his lightsaber. The familiar weight of the hilt offered a small comfort in the overwhelming despair that threatened to consume him. Padme. The image of her lifeless form, her beautiful eyes forever closed, seared itself onto his mind's eye. He squeezed his eyes shut, the phantom touch of her hand still lingering on his skin, a cruel mockery of his loss. Their mission to Felucia, a mission born of hope and a desire to create a sanctuary from the ravages of war, had been brutally cut short. The ambush had been swift, merciless. Darth Sidious's shadow stretched across the battlefield, even from afar, a chilling reminder of the relentless evil that haunted the galaxy. He'd fought with a fury born of grief and rage, but it wasn't enough. They were outnumbered, outmatched. Padme. His Padme. She'd been struck down before his eyes, her lifeblood staining the cold, unforgiving metal of their ship. The memory of her final breath, the chilling emptiness of her gaze, tore at him. He had failed her. He had failed to protect her, the woman he loved more than life itself. The Force, which had once been his solace, his strength, felt distant, cold, and uncaring. He clutched the lightsaber tighter, the vibrations almost a physical manifestation of his inner turmoil. The ship shuddered violently, the alarms blaring a chaotic symphony of impending doom. Through the shattered viewport, he caught a glimpse of something utterly alien. The stark, black void of space was replaced by a vibrant tapestry of green and blue, swirling clouds painting a breathtaking picture of a world he'd never seen before. Earth. The name echoed in his mind, a whisper from a forgotten memory. But it didn't matter. Nothing mattered anymore except the crushing weight of his grief. The ship lurched violently, throwing him against the console. Sparks erupted, the acrid smell of burning wires filling the air. He gasped, a sharp pain lancing through his side, his vision blurring. He could feel the ship losing control, plummeting towards the surface of this strange, vibrant world below. He braced himself, the lightsaber his only companion in the face of certain death. The descent was a blur of chaotic motion and bone-jarring impacts. The ship bucked and swayed, its metallic frame groaning under the immense strain. Explosions rocked the vessel, sending showers of sparks and debris flying. He could hear the screams of his ship's systems as they overloaded, their circuits frying in a fiery death. The ground rushed up to meet him, a chaotic mixture of green and brown, a stark contrast to the cold emptiness of space. The impact was deafening, a cataclysmic collision that shattered the ship and sent Anakin tumbling through a hail of broken metal and sparking wires. He landed hard, the force of the impact knocking the air from his lungs. He lay there, momentarily stunned, his body throbbing with pain. The lightsaber slipped from his grasp, landing several feet away. He coughed, blood welling up in his mouth, tasting metallic and bitter. He looked around, his eyes slowly adjusting to the unfamiliar landscape. The ship lay in ruins around him, a twisted, mangled mess of scorched metal and shattered glass. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and burning fuel. He struggled to his feet, his legs unsteady, his head swimming. He was alive. But at what cost? The world around him was a cacophony of sounds, the distant sirens, the shouts of people, the crackling of flames. He looked up, seeing a city in the distance, its buildings rising towards the sky like towering monoliths. He was on a planet, a living, breathing planet, teeming with life. But it was a planet unlike any he'd ever encountered. He stumbled through the wreckage, his movements clumsy and painful. His vision was blurry, his thoughts muddled. The events of the last few hours seemed to be merging into a hazy fog of memories, the ambush, Padme's death, the warp in space, the jarring descent. He reached out, his hand trembling as he touched the cool earth, the soil alien yet strangely comforting under his fingertips. Where was he? What had happened? He looked back towards his destroyed ship. What was left of his life was a burning wreckage, mirroring the charred remains of his hope. In the distance, he heard the frantic cries of people approaching. He knew instinctively that he was not alone. He was hurt, disoriented, lost, but he was alive. And he would survive. He had to. For Padme. He picked up his lightsaber, the familiar weight strangely soothing in his trembling hand, a symbol of his determination to face whatever the future held, even if it was a future he did not understand. A figure emerged from the chaos, young, slight, yet radiating an almost overwhelming aura of energy and determination. He was dressed in a distinctive green costume, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and concern. The young man cautiously approached the wreckage, his movements quick but controlled. Anakin instinctively tensed, his hand instinctively going to the hilt of his lightsaber. The young man stopped several feet away, gazing at him with a mixture of apprehension and empathy. "Are you okay?" the young man asked, his voice hesitant yet clearly concerned. Anakin stared at him, his mind still reeling from the cataclysmic events. He tried to speak, but his throat was raw, his voice hoarse and broken. The young man's gaze, though initially apprehensive, held a profound sense of compassion, which surprisingly calmed Anakin's racing heart. This boy, this hero, would be his unexpected beacon in the darkness. This world, this bizarre, vibrant planet, would be his new crucible, his testing ground for forging a new path through the ruins of his past. He would survive. He would heal. And he would find a new purpose in this strange new land. This much he knew, even amidst the ruins of his heart and the disorientation of his surroundings. The unexpected encounter marked a shift, not only in his physical journey but also in his emotional landscape. This was the beginning of a new chapter, a new hope. A hope that he would cling to, even in the face of his overwhelming loss. The forest floor vibrated beneath Deku's feet, a tremor that had nothing to do with the usual earth-shaking power of his quirk. He glanced back at his team, Uraka, Ida, and Todoroki, their faces etched with a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction. The three villains, a motley crew of low-level thugs, were secured, their restraints expertly applied by Ida's speed and Todoroki's precise ice-based binds. Uraka's zero-gravity quirk had proven invaluable in subduing their erratic movements. The police sirens were already wailing in the distance, a reassuring sound that marked the end of another successful mission. Deku, his breath ragged but his spirit high, felt a familiar surge of adrenaline begin to subside. The adrenaline, however, was quickly replaced by something else, a strange prickling sensation on his skin, a feeling of impending change that he couldn't quite place. He looked up, his gaze instinctively drawn to the sky. At first, he dismissed it as a trick of the light filtering through the dense canopy. But then, he saw it again, a brilliant streak of light, an unnatural luminescence cutting through the afternoon sky. It grew rapidly larger, gaining intensity with each passing second. It wasn't a bird, a plane, or even a particularly spectacular meteor shower. This was something else entirely. Something alien. The light intensified, bathing the forest in an ethereal glow, the familiar green hues of the foliage turning an almost surreal shade of emerald. The air crackled with an energy that raised the hairs on the back of Deku's neck. He felt a surge of apprehension, a sense of wonder so profound it stole his breath. Before he could fully process his fear, a thunderous roar shattered the tranquility of the forest. The ground beneath him buckled. The trees around them swayed wildly, their branches whipping back and forth like angry tentacles. The earth trembled violently, a deep, guttural sound that seemed to emanate from the very core of the planet. Deku stumbled, bracing himself against a sturdy oak, its bark rough under his fingertips. Uraka, Ida, and Todoroki were similarly thrown off balance. They exchanged worried glances, their eyes reflecting the growing chaos. This wasn't a villain attack, this was something far beyond their training, far beyond anything they'd ever encountered. The light intensified, then faded, replaced by a deafening crash that seemed to tear through the fabric of the very forest itself. A wave of intense heat washed over them, carrying with it the sharp, acrid scent of burning metal and something else. Something alien. Deku shielded his eyes, peering through the dust and smoke that filled the air. When the dust settled, he saw it, a wrecked spaceship, its metallic hull twisted and broken, lying half buried in the earth. It was a mangled mess of scorched metal, twisted wires, and shattered glass. Curiosity overriding his fear, an instinct honed from years of confronting villains and rescuing civilians, drove Deku forward. He raced towards the crash site, ignoring the warning shouts of his friends. Uraka, ever the responsible one, tried to restrain him, but Deku was already sprinting through the debris-strewn forest, his heart pounding in his chest. Ida, with his unwavering sense of justice, followed close behind, while Todoroki trailed, his icy gaze scanning the surroundings with an air of caution. The ship was larger than any aircraft he'd ever seen. It looked sleek and powerful, even in its destroyed state. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and burning fuel, the heat radiating from the wreckage intense enough to make Deku sweat. He approached cautiously, his senses heightened, his body ready to react. He scanned the area for any signs of survivors, his mind replaying his training, visualizing the many emergency scenarios he had practiced. As he drew closer, he heard a groaning sound emanating from within the wreckage. A creaking sound followed, a groan of stressed metal, as a section of the ship's hull buckled and shifted. Then, with a final, groaning sigh, a section of the ship's door shuddered open. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the darkening sky. The figure was a man, tall and imposing even in his weakened state. He stumbled, his movements slow and painful, blood staining his clothes. His face was pale, his features sharp and etched with weariness. In his hand, he clutched something that shimmered with an ethereal, otherworldly blue light. It was a lightsaber. The very image sparked a memory, a fleeting image from a faded anime he'd watched as a child, a story of long ago battles and heroes who wielded these magnificent weapons of light. The man looked at Deku, his eyes, dark and tired, locking onto his own. A moment passed, a long, silent moment, filled with an unspoken exchange of emotions. Then, the man stumbled, collapsing to the forest floor with a soft thud. Deku rushed to his side, his heart pounding in his chest. He was badly injured. The man's breathing was shallow, his skin clammy. He looked up at Deku, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Help!" he rasped, his voice barely a whisper, before losing consciousness. His grip on the lightsaber loosened, the weapon falling to the ground with a soft metallic clink. Deku's mind raced. This was unlike anything he had ever faced. A spaceship crash, a wounded man with a strange weapon, the almost supernatural events that led to this encounter. He looked down at the unconscious man, his heart filled with a strange mixture of fear, compassion, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. He knew he had to help. He had to do what any hero would do. This was just the beginning. The air hung heavy with the scent of burnt metal and ozone, a stark contrast to the usual earthy fragrance of the forest. Deku knelt beside the fallen man, the lightsaber lying inches from his outstretched hand. The blue blade, though deactivated, pulsed with a faint inner light, a captivating beacon in the gathering twilight. He gently touched the man's wrist, feeling for a pulse. It was weak, erratic, but present. Relief washed over him, the man was still alive. The man's attire was unlike anything Deku had ever seen. A dark, almost black, tunic clung to his lean frame, adorned with intricate, silver detailing that seemed almost woven into the fabric itself. His boots, scuffed and worn, were sturdy and functional, hinting at a life lived on the move. A worn leather belt encircled his waist, holding a small pouch and what appeared to be a utility knife, its handle crafted from a dark, polished wood. The man's face, though pale and streaked with dirt and blood, held a certain nobility, a quiet strength that even unconsciousness couldn't completely extinguish. His features were sharp, almost aristocratic, with high cheekbones and a strong jawline. His dark hair, thick and slightly wavy, was plastered to his forehead with sweat and blood. Deku, despite the adrenaline still thrumming in his veins, felt a profound sense of calm settle over him. The initial shock of the crash, the alien technology, the man's mysterious weapon, all of it faded into the background, replaced by a primal instinct to protect and heal. He carefully checked the man for other injuries. There was a deep gash on his left arm, bleeding steadily, and several smaller abrasions covering his body. His breathing was shallow and ragged, punctuated by occasional gasps for air. He knew he couldn't move the man until help arrived. The police sirens, still some distance away, were the only promise of immediate assistance. He needed to stabilize the man's condition, to buy him time. He carefully removed his own jacket, using it as a makeshift pillow beneath the man's head. Then, remembering his first aid training, he applied gentle pressure to the gash on the man's arm, attempting to slow the bleeding. The man groaned softly, a low, guttural sound that indicated pain but didn't signal any immediate deterioration. Deku glanced at the lightsaber. It felt strangely warm to the touch, radiating a gentle heat that was almost comforting. He hesitated, unsure whether to pick it up or leave it where it lay. It was a weapon, a potent one at that, but in this moment, it seemed less like an instrument of destruction and more like a symbol of the man's strength, resilience, and the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them together. He decided to leave it where it was, focusing on tending to the injured man's immediate needs. As Deku worked, he couldn't help but study the man's face more closely. There was something hauntingly familiar about his features, a sense of nobility and quiet intensity that resonated with him on a deeper level. It was as if he had seen this face somewhere before, perhaps in a dream, or a fleeting image on a screen. The feeling was fleeting, elusive, but undeniably there. The man stirred slightly, his eyelids fluttering open for a brief moment before closing again. A low groan escaped the man's lips. This time, however, it was accompanied by a muffled whisper. Deku leaned closer, straining to hear above the rustling of the leaves and the distant wail of sirens. My ship. The man mumbled, his voice barely audible. Crashed. Deku nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the obvious. He gently squeezed the man's hand, offering a reassurance that felt as much for himself as for the injured stranger. He felt a connection, a shared understanding that transcended language and cultural barriers. The man was clearly exhausted, his body drained of energy. He felt a profound sense of empathy toward the stranger, a feeling that only intensified with each passing moment. After what felt like an eternity, the sound of approaching footsteps broke the stillness. Uraka, Ida, and Todoroki arrived at the crash site, their faces etched with worry and concern. They had finally caught up with Deku after their initial attempts to restrain his rush towards the wreckage. Uraka gasped upon seeing the injured man, while Ida immediately began assessing the situation, his mind already formulating a plan. Todoroki, ever the pragmatist, started surveying the surrounding area for any other signs of danger or survivors. Uraka's eyes widened as she took in the scene. Deku, she whispered, he has a lightsaber. Her voice was a hushed mix of awe and apprehension. The sight of the weapon, so reminiscent of the anime they all loved, was shocking and surreal. Ida, ever the strategist, stepped forward, his hand resting on his own sidearm. We need to secure the area, he announced, his voice ringing with authority. Uraka, assess the man's injuries and assist Deku. Todoroki, check the perimeter for any signs of hostile activity. Todoroki nodded, his dual-colored eyes scanning the forest around them, an aura of caution radiating from him. He moved with silent precision, his movements as controlled and efficient as his ice powers. Uraka knelt beside Deku, her eyes wide with a mixture of concern and fascination. She began to assist Deku in tending to the man's wounds, her touch surprisingly gentle and competent. The man remained unconscious, his breathing shallow and weak. The scene was a bizarre blend of high-stakes emergency and otherworldly fantasy. The reality of a spaceship crash, combined with the presence of a futuristic weapon, added a layer of complexity that even Deku's hero training could not fully prepare him for. He glanced up at the sky, the stars beginning to peek through the gaps in the forest canopy. The night was descending, and with it, a sense of profound uncertainty. This was far beyond any villain attack, a challenge unlike any they had ever faced. The man's fate, and perhaps the fate of their world, now rested in their hands. The adventure had just begun. The sirens grew louder, closer, their wail cutting through the quiet tension of the forest. Deku felt a surge of relief, knowing professional help was on its way. But the weight of responsibility remained, heavy on his chest. He continued to apply pressure to the man's wound, his own hands trembling slightly with the effort. The man's breathing remained shallow, but it was steady, a small victory in this surreal situation. Uraka, Ida, and Todoroki's arrival was a welcome sight, bringing with it a sense of organized competence that Deku desperately needed. Uraka, ever the empath, immediately focused on the injured man, her eyes filled with concern and a hint of awe as she took in the deactivated lightsaber lying near his hand. Ida, true to his nature, swiftly assessed the situation, issuing orders with calm authority, while Todoroki silently surveyed the perimeter, his heterochromia eyes sharp and vigilant. Together, they carefully moved the injured man onto a stretcher, the process slow and deliberate to avoid further injury. Deku, still clutching the man's hand, felt a pang of sadness as the physical contact was broken. The man, despite his unconscious state, seemed to exude a certain fragility, a vulnerability that tugged at Deku's heartstrings. The journey back to UA was a blur of flashing lights and hurried movements. The ambulance sirens sliced through the night, a jarring contrast to the peaceful quiet of the forest just moments before. Deku sat beside the stretcher, his hand resting lightly on the man's arm, a silent vigil. He felt a protectiveness towards this mysterious stranger, a sense of responsibility that was both frightening and exhilarating. He knew that he had witnessed something extraordinary, something that would irrevocably change his life. At UA, the medical staff sprang into action. They were efficient, professional, and surprisingly calm amidst the chaos of a spaceship crash and the presence of a seemingly alien weapon. The lightsaber, now carefully secured in a protective case, was treated with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Deku watched the proceedings with a mixture of relief and apprehension. He felt compelled to stay close, to ensure that everything was done correctly, to somehow protect this enigmatic figure who had fallen from the skies. Hours later, Deku sat by Anakin Skywalker's bedside, his heart pounding a nervous rhythm against his ribs. The man, now identified by the small data chip found on his person, was slowly regaining consciousness. His eyes flickered open, dark and intense, taking in the sterile environment of the hospital room. For a moment, A flicker of confusion, of disorientation crossed his features. He blinked slowly, then looked directly at Deku. There was no immediate hostility, only a cautious assessment. Where am I? Anakin's voice was weak, raspy, but clear. You're at UA Hospital, Deku responded, his voice soft and reassuring. You were in an accident. A spaceship crash. He hesitated, unsure of how much information to share. Anakin's gaze remained steady, unwavering. He studied Deku intently, his eyes seeming to penetrate beyond the surface. A spaceship? He repeated, a faint trace of disbelief in his tone.
I don't understand.
Deku nodded sympathetically. He understood the disorientation, the confusion. He'd been in similar situations himself, moments of intense trauma that left him struggling to piece together reality. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. It's all right. You're safe now. You're going to be okay. The words felt inadequate, insufficient to convey the complexity of the situation, but they were honest. He reached out a hand, hesitant but genuine, offering a small gesture of comfort. Anakin didn't flinch. Instead, he slowly reached out and grasped Deku's hand, his grip surprisingly strong. There was a moment of shared silence, a silent acknowledgement of their shared humanity, of a connection that transcended language and circumstances. My ship, Anakin murmured, his voice still weak, the wreckage. It's being taken care of, Deku reassured him. The authorities are handling everything. You just need to focus on resting. Anakin nodded slowly, closing his eyes as if the effort of speaking had exhausted him. Deku remained beside him, watching him carefully, noting the rise and fall of his chest, the faint tremor in his hand. The bond between them wasn't formed in a dramatic explosion of shared trust, it was a slow burn, a quiet understanding built upon shared experience and mutual respect. As the days turned into weeks, Deku became Anakin's unlikely caregiver. He visited Anakin regularly, bringing him books, playing him calming music, sometimes simply sitting in silence, offering companionship and unspoken support. Their conversations were slow, deliberate, hesitant at first, then growing increasingly fluid as trust blossomed between them. Deku, driven by his inherent empathy and desire to understand, peppered Anakin with questions, probing gently about his past, his life, his ship, the world he came from. Anakin, in turn, began to share fragments of his life, bits and pieces of his story that unraveled slowly, like a precious, ancient scroll. He spoke of journeys across the stars, of battles fought and lost, of friendships forged and broken. He spoke of a conflict that had reached beyond the stars and had spilled into this world, unknowingly. Deku listened with rapt attention, his imagination ignited by the tales of a galaxy far, far away. He saw the parallels between Anakin's experiences and his own, the shared struggles against overwhelming odds, the burdens of responsibility, the pain of loss. He found himself identifying with Anakin's strength, his resilience, his unwavering belief in hope, even in the darkest of times. Their conversations were a tapestry woven with threads of shared trauma, shared dreams, and a shared yearning for justice and peace. Anakin quickly sensed Deku's sincerity, his genuine desire to understand, not to judge. He saw the burning intensity in Deku's green eyes, the same fierce determination that fueled his own heart. It wasn't just a hero's innate compassion, it was something deeper, a profound connection born out of a shared experience of adversity. The bond that formed between them was not a dramatic explosion of instant trust, but a slow, steady ember glowing in the quiet moments, solidifying into a fierce alliance. The world that had been shattered by a crash landing had begun to heal, not through action-packed battles, but through quiet understanding, empathy, and a slow, shared journey toward healing. It's different here, Anakin said one day, his voice stronger now, though still tinged with a weariness that settled deep in his bones. He was sitting up in bed, propped against pillows, a thin blanket draped over his legs. Deku sat beside him, a worn copy of One Piece resting unopened on his lap. The hospital room, once a sterile, frightening place, now felt comfortable, familiar, almost like a haven. Different how? Deku asked gently, his gaze fixed on Anakin's face, searching for any sign of discomfort. Anakin hesitated, searching for the right words. The abilities. The things people here can do. These quirks, you called them? Deku nodded. Yeah, quirks. Everyone, almost everyone, is born with one. It's a special power, something unique to them. Some people can control fire, others can move things with their minds, some have super strength. It's all different, as unique as a person's fingerprint. He paused, considering his words carefully. It's part of who you are. It's woven into your being, like your personality. Anakin studied him intently. It sounds familiar. Not the abilities themselves, not exactly. But the connection to the person. The way it's tied to their spirit, their will. Deku leaned forward, intrigued. What do you mean? In my world, Anakin began, his voice dropping to a low murmur, there's something called the Force. It's energy. A field of power that connects everything. And some people, they can tap into it. They can use it to do extraordinary things. Like move objects with their minds, or sense things others can't. But the Force, it's not just about the power itself. It's about the person. It's how they use it. Their intent. Their purpose. He paused, a faraway look in his eyes. A Jedi, a true Jedi, uses the Force to help others, to protect the innocent, to fight for what's right. The Force amplifies what's already inside them. A silence settled between them, heavy with unspoken understanding. Deku pondered Anakin's words, the comparison resonating deeply within him. He thought of All Might, his idol, his beacon of hope. All Might's quirk, his overwhelming strength, was undeniably powerful, but it was All Might's unwavering dedication to justice, his unyielding spirit, his selflessness, that truly made him a hero. The quirk amplified his innate heroism, didn't create it. That's a lot like how quirks work here, Deku said slowly, a thoughtful expression on his face. It's not just about the power, it's about how you use it. A quirk can be incredibly destructive if used for evil, but it can also be incredibly helpful if used to save people. He looked at Anakin, his eyes shining with conviction. A lot of people think it's about having the best quirk, the strongest power, but it's really about your heart. Your will to use your power for good. To help others, he remembered All Might's words, it's not about power, it's about the heart of the hero. Anakin listened, a quiet intensity in his gaze. He saw the reflection of himself in Deku's words, a parallel between the Jedi Code and the unspoken heroism that permeated this world. He'd seen the misuse of the Force, the devastating consequences of unchecked power fueled by anger, fear, and selfish ambition. He'd witnessed firsthand how easily the line between light and dark could be blurred, how the very power intended for good could be twisted into an instrument of destruction. The Force, it can be a dangerous thing, Anakin murmured, his voice laced with a deep sadness. It can corrupt you, if you let it. If you don't control it, it can control you. He looked at Deku, his eyes filled with a profound understanding. It's a responsibility, a huge burden. You have to be strong, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually. You have to know when to use it, and when to hold back. Deku nodded solemnly. He understood the burden of responsibility. He'd felt it himself, the weight of expectations, the pressure to live up to the ideals of his hero, the fear of failure. He thought about how he had struggled to control his own quirk, how he'd almost let it consume him, how he'd almost let his anxiety cripple him. He felt a kinship with Anakin's struggle, a shared understanding of the difficulties in wielding a potentially destructive force while maintaining a strong moral compass. The idea of immense power being tied to inner strength was something they both shared, making their conversations feel less like a conversation between individuals from two disparate worlds and more like a discussion between kindred spirits. But there's also hope, Anakin continued, a flicker of light in his eyes. There's the potential for great good. The potential for healing, for protection, for peace. It's all in how you choose to use it. He looked at Deku, his gaze intense, a spark of something new igniting in his dark eyes. Perhaps your quirk isn't just a quirk. Perhaps it's something more. Perhaps it's a gateway to something deeper. Deku stared at him, stunned. The idea was audacious, almost unbelievable, yet the quiet intensity in Anakin's voice, the sincere belief in his eyes, made it impossible to dismiss. The notion that his quirk, his own unique ability, might be connected to the Force, to this vast, mystical energy that permeated another galaxy, was breathtaking. It felt like a seed of possibility had been planted, a tiny spark of hope that had the potential to blossom into something extraordinary. The conversation, initially a comparison of vastly different concepts, had evolved into something profoundly personal, a bridge across galaxies, a shared understanding of the burden and potential of immense power. The crash landing had brought them together, but this conversation was forging a bond far deeper than mere circumstance. It was the beginning of a new journey, one that would challenge them both, pushing them beyond the boundaries of their own worlds and into uncharted territories of potential. Chapter 2, Training begins. The sterile scent of antiseptic still clung to Anakin's clothes, a faint reminder of his recent ordeal, but the crisp autumn air, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, was a welcome change. He led Deku to a secluded clearing within the sprawling grounds of the hospital complex, a place shielded from view by towering evergreens. Fallen leaves crunched under their feet, a soft counterpoint to the rhythmic thud of Anakin's own breathing. "This will be our training ground," Anakin announced, his voice low, a hint of a tremor still present. He gestured towards a clearing, bathed in the dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves. "We'll start with the basics." He drew his lightsaber from its worn leather sheath. The hum of the ignited blade, a low, resonant thrum, filled the air, a subtle vibration that seemed to resonate in Deku's very bones. The emerald green energy pulsed with contained power, a stark contrast to the peaceful setting. Deku stared, mesmerized. He'd seen lightsabers in countless anime, futuristic weapons wielded by heroes and villains alike, but seeing one in person, held by a real person, was an entirely different experience. It wasn't just a weapon, it was an extension of Anakin, an embodiment of the power he'd spoken of, a power both terrifying and awe-inspiring.
I don't have the Force," Deku stammered, a sudden wave of self-doubt washing over him.
He knew he couldn't tap into some mystical energy field to enhance his movements. He was just Deku, a boy with a quirk, nothing more. Anakin sensed his apprehension. "The Force enhances natural abilities, Deku, but it's not a requirement for effective combat. In fact, much of lightsaber combat relies on precise movements, calculated strategies, and sheer physical prowess. You have those." He paused, his gaze intense. "You have your quirk, your agility. We will build on that." Their training began with the simplest of movements. Anakin showed him the basic stances, the fluid transitions between offense and defense, the importance of balance and control. Each movement was precise, controlled, each parry and thrust imbued with a quiet grace that belied the deadly potential of the weapon. Deku, surprisingly, found he had a natural aptitude for imitation. His quirk, the ability to enhance his physical capabilities and react with lightning-fast reflexes, allowed him to quickly grasp the fundamentals. For hours, they practiced. Anakin would move, his lightsaber a blur of green energy, then pause, instructing Deku to copy his stance, to mimic the flow of his movements. He broke down each action into its constituent parts, emphasizing proper footwork, precise strikes, and efficient energy conservation. He patiently corrected Deku's posture, his hand gently guiding Deku's movements, showing him how to maintain balance, to shift his weight effortlessly, to anticipate and react to potential attacks. The training wasn't just physical, it was mental as well. Anakin pushed Deku to focus, to clear his mind of distractions, to concentrate entirely on the task at hand. He taught him to observe his opponent's movements, to predict their next action, to anticipate their attacks. He emphasized the importance of strategic thinking, of anticipating his opponent's moves, and to find openings in their defense. He spoke of strategy, of tactics, and of the subtle art of misdirection. The essence of lightsaber combat wasn't just power but cunning. As the days turned into weeks, Deku's progress was remarkable. Anakin was surprised by the boy's dedication, his determination to master the art of lightsaber combat. He adapted his training methods, incorporating elements of Deku's quirk into their sessions, pushing his speed and agility to the absolute limits. He devised drills that tested Deku's reflexes, his ability to adapt and react to unexpected situations. He designed scenarios mimicking various combat situations. He'd create a simulated ambush, forcing Deku to respond quickly and decisively, teaching him to anticipate danger before it struck. Sometimes he'd use his lightsaber to create a shimmering distraction, forcing Deku to concentrate and track it, sharpening his focus. There were moments of frustration, of course. Deku would stumble, would falter, would feel the sting of a simulated blow. But he never gave up. He pushed himself harder, striving to improve, constantly analyzing his mistakes, and learning from them. The intensity of training was mirrored in his growth. His initial hesitancy transformed into a quiet confidence. His initial clumsy movements began to flow more smoothly, his strikes becoming more focused, more lethal. One afternoon, after weeks of relentless training, Anakin held back. He allowed Deku to attack. Deku, wielding a training lightsaber, a heavier, dull-edged replica, moved with a newfound grace and precision. His movements were sharp, his reflexes honed to a razor's edge, his eyes locked onto Anakin's, anticipating every shift, every change in posture. His enhanced reflexes turned what were once painstakingly learned techniques into a fluid, almost natural response. He danced around Anakin's defense, his movements mirroring, albeit slower, the elegance and precision he'd witnessed. He parried, he riposted, his movements becoming increasingly confident, his attacks more calculated, more devastating. The thud of the two lightsabers clashing echoed through the clearing, the sound both exhilarating and oddly comforting. Anakin, despite his injuries, responded to Deku's attacks with ease. This was a test of Deku's understanding, not a true duel. With each successful parry, Deku's confidence soared, fueling his determination. He could feel the power growing within him, not a mystical power, but a power born from dedication and discipline. It was a power that was entirely his own. The session ended with a shared exhaustion, a mutual respect unspoken but palpable. Anakin smiled, a rare and genuine smile, one that reached his eyes. "You're a natural, Deku," he said, his voice hoarse but filled with pride. "You're stronger than you think." He sheathed his lightsaber, the hum of the blade ceasing. The silence that followed was more profound, richer, filled with the unspoken language of trust and shared accomplishment. The journey was far from over, but Deku had taken his first decisive steps on the path to becoming a warrior. A warrior who may not wield the Force, but who possessed something equally valuable, a heart filled with courage, unwavering determination, and the unwavering spirit of a true hero. The crisp evening air bit at their exposed skin as they sat by a crackling fire, the embers throwing dancing shadows on their faces. Anakin, leaning against a moss-covered boulder, carefully cleaned his lightsaber, the rhythmic polishing a counterpoint to the crackling fire. Deku sat opposite him, nursing a cup of something warm and faintly sweet, his usual bright eyes shadowed with a pensive stillness. The rigorous training had taken its toll, leaving both of them physically and mentally drained, yet strangely invigorated. "It's hard, isn't it?" Anakin said, his voice low, his gaze fixed on the glowing blade. Deku nodded, tracing the rim of his mug with a finger. "It's different. Everything in my anime is so immediate. A sudden burst of power, a quick strike, and it's over. This is about control. Precision." Anakin smiled, a small, tired smile that nevertheless held a spark of warmth. "Exactly. The Force, in a way, is like a quirk, but instead of manifesting as a specific ability, it's a reservoir of energy, a wellspring of potential within you. Think of it like this: your quirk allows you to enhance your physical abilities. The Force, for those who can tap into it, allows for a similar enhancement, but on a much wider scale. It's an amplification of everything you already are." Deku frowned, considering. "But I don't have the Force." "Not yet," Anakin corrected gently. "Think of your quirk. You didn't just wake up one day with super speed and enhanced reflexes, did you? You honed it, practiced, pushed your limits. The Force is similar. It's about harnessing inner strength, cultivating control, understanding your own energy flow. Your quirk is a tangible manifestation of your inner energy, the Force is the same, but more subtle." He paused, swirling the cleaning cloth around the hilt of his lightsaber. "Let's talk about your quirk again. When you activate it, you feel a surge, a rush of energy, right? You feel stronger, faster, more capable. You focus that energy, channeling it into your movements. The Force is similar. It's about focusing your intent, harnessing your inner strength, directing it towards your goal, whether that's defending yourself, or moving with enhanced agility or strength." Anakin picked up a small, smooth stone from the ground, holding it between his thumb and forefinger. "Imagine this stone as your energy. Raw potential, dormant until you choose to use it. Your quirk is like focusing a lens on that stone, amplifying its energy in a specific way. The Force is like learning to manipulate that stone with your mind, to shape and direct its power, to enhance any aspect of yourself you choose." He tossed the stone into the air, catching it with a practiced ease. "Think about your movements during training. The precision, the control, the calculated strikes. That's not just physical skill. That's focused intent, channeling your energy, your power, into each move. The Force is about refining that process, about mastering the flow of your inner energy to achieve greater results." He leaned back against the boulder, gazing at the stars beginning to pepper the darkening sky. "It's not about mystical powers or supernatural abilities. It's about understanding yourself, pushing your limits, and harnessing the power you already possess. It's about discipline, control, and unwavering focus. The Force, it's an extension of yourself, a refinement of your own potential." Deku remained silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the flickering flames. He thought about his training, the grueling hours of practice, the sweat, the aching muscles, the occasional frustration. He thought about the way his body moved now, the increased agility, the honed reflexes. It wasn't magic, it was work, dedication, and the sheer will to push himself beyond his limits. "So, it's not some outside force I need to tap into?" Deku finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Not exactly," Anakin replied softly. "It's a force within you, waiting to be unleashed. It's a power you already possess, a potential you've barely begun to explore. The Force is the symphony of your potential, the harmony between your body, your mind, and your spirit. It's the power of your will, the strength of your conviction, the unwavering resolve that drives you forward. He stood, stretching his limbs, the firelight illuminating his gaunt features. Your quirk is the foundation, Deku. It's a pathway, a stepping stone. Your training is strengthening that foundation, teaching you control, discipline, and focus. These are the keys to unlocking your inner potential, whether you call it the Force or something else. It's the key to mastering your power, to becoming the warrior you are capable of being. Over the next few weeks, Anakin adapted their training, incorporating these newfound analogies into their sessions. He'd have Deku focus on the flow of his energy during his quirk activations, having him sense the surge, the rush of power, and consciously directing it into his movements. He'd have him practice meditation, focusing on clearing his mind, calming his breathing, and centering himself, teaching him to feel the flow of energy within his own body, a mirroring of the connection those attuned to the Force could achieve. He designed exercises that pushed Deku to his physical limits, not simply to enhance his speed and strength, but to develop his self-awareness, to understand how his body reacted under pressure, to learn to anticipate his own movements and control his energy expenditure. He emphasized strategy, anticipating his opponent's actions not through mystical precognition, but through careful observation, logical deduction, and keen intuition. He showed him how the precise movements of lightsaber combat were not merely about brute force, but about efficiency, balance, and the understanding of momentum. He likened it to directing a river's flow, carefully guiding its current to erode barriers and overcome obstacles. The essence of lightsaber combat was not just about strength but about the intelligent channeling of power, much like directing one's own inner energy. One afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Anakin watched Deku practice a series of complex maneuvers. His movements were no longer just imitations, they were fluid, graceful, imbued with a growing understanding, a sense of confidence that shone in his eyes. He was no longer merely reacting, he was anticipating, controlling, and harnessing his potential. His quirk was no longer a raw power, it was a refined tool, an extension of his will. Anakin saw a glimmer of something else in Deku's eyes, a subtle shift in his awareness, a hint of the inner strength and focus he had been striving to cultivate. It wasn't the Force, not in the traditional sense, but it was something equally potent, a potent blend of his innate abilities, refined through rigorous training and a developing understanding of his own inner energy. It was the birth of a new strength, a unique power forged not in some mystical energy field, but in the crucible of self-discovery, dedication, and unyielding determination. A power, Anakin knew, that was far more potent than he had initially anticipated. The journey was far from over, but Deku was beginning to walk his own path, a path towards mastery that was uniquely and powerfully his own. The lightsaber felt alien in Deku's hand, a heavy, unwieldy extension of his own inadequacy. His first attempts were disastrous. He swung wildly, nearly tripping over his own feet, the blade flashing erratically, a chaotic dance of near misses and frustrated grunts. Anakin, watching patiently from a distance, offered only quiet encouragement, his presence a steady beacon in the storm of Deku's self-doubt. "Relax your grip," Anakin advised, his voice calm and reassuring. "Let the Force, or rather, let your energy, flow through you. Don't fight it, become one with the movement." The advice was easier said than done. Deku's attempts to become one with the movement felt more like a desperate struggle against a rebellious limb. His quirk amplified his strength, making his movements powerful but uncontrolled, leading to a series of clumsy, near-disastrous swings. The blade would veer off course, his footwork tripping over itself, his concentration shattered by his own raw, untamed power. Days bled into weeks, each training session a grueling test of his endurance, his patience, and his unwavering resolve. Anakin meticulously charted Deku's progress, patiently correcting his stance, his grip, the angle of his swings. He started with basic stances, then slowly progressed to controlled lunges and parries. Each small victory was a hard-won battle against Deku's own self-doubt, a testament to the power of perseverance. One particularly frustrating session ended with Deku throwing the lightsaber to the ground in a fit of frustrated tears. The polished metal clattered against the rocky terrain, the sound echoing his own despair. He sank to his knees, the weight of his failure crushing him. Anakin approached slowly, kneeling beside him. He didn't speak, just offered a hand, a silent gesture of support. Deku took it, the simple act a lifeline in his sea of self-doubt. "It's okay to feel frustrated," Anakin said softly, his voice a balm to Deku's wounded spirit. "This is challenging. But it's also a journey of self-discovery. You're not just learning to wield a weapon, you're learning to control your own power, your own potential." He pointed to a distant mountain, its peak shrouded in mist. Look at that mountain, Deku. It wasn't built in a day. It took millennia of pressure, erosion, shaping. Your mastery of the lightsaber, of your own power, is the same. It takes time, patience, and the unwavering will to keep climbing, even when the climb seems impossible. Anakin's words resonated deeply within Deku. He realized that his struggles weren't signs of failure but rather stepping stones on his path to mastery. He wiped his tears, a newfound determination hardening his gaze. The next training session was different. He approached the lightsaber with a renewed sense of purpose, a quiet focus that replaced his earlier chaotic energy. He remembered Anakin's analogy of the river, learning to channel his energy, guiding its flow with precision and control. He focused on his breathing, calming his heart rate, clearing his mind. He practiced his stances, his movements becoming fluid, economical. His quirk was still a powerful force, but now he had learned to harness it, to direct its energy with precision rather than brute force. His swings were no longer erratic bursts of power, but controlled, calculated strikes, each movement flowing seamlessly into the next. He practiced his parries, deflecting Anakin's attacks with increasing agility and grace. He learned to anticipate his opponent's moves, not through some mystical premonition, but through keen observation, logical deduction, and a growing awareness of his own body and its capabilities. Anakin watched, a quiet smile playing on his lips. He saw the transformation in Deku, not just in his physical prowess but in his mental fortitude. He was learning to control not just the lightsaber but himself, to harness the power within him, to transform his raw potential into refined skill. There were still setbacks, moments of doubt and frustration, but they became less frequent, less debilitating. Deku learned from his mistakes, analyzing his failures, refining his techniques, and steadily pushing himself beyond his perceived limitations. He started incorporating his quirk in more subtle ways. He discovered he could enhance his reflexes, anticipating Anakin's attacks with lightning-fast reactions, deflecting his blade with effortless precision. He learned to use his enhanced strength to leverage his movements, executing complex maneuvers with a grace and power that surprised even himself. One evening, as the stars glittered above them, Deku stood poised, the lightsaber humming softly in his hand. Anakin stood opposite him, his own lightsaber ignited, a steady glow against the darkening sky. They sparred, not with brute force, but with an elegant dance of precision and control. Deku's movements were fluid, graceful, imbued with a confidence and skill that had blossomed from his struggles and his unwavering determination. The duel wasn't about winning or losing, it was a testament to Deku's growth, a reflection of his journey from clumsy novice to a skilled warrior. Anakin felt a surge of pride watching him, knowing that Deku had not just mastered a weapon but had discovered a power within himself, a strength far greater than any lightsaber could ever provide. He had not simply learned to wield a weapon, he had learned to harness the potential within himself, a journey far more significant than any skill he could have acquired. It was the dawn of a new era, the beginning of his own unique path to mastery, forged in the fires of unwavering perseverance and the unwavering guidance of his mentor. The journey had been arduous, but the breakthrough was profound, a testament to the unwavering spirit of a young man who had refused to be defeated. The rhythmic clang of steel on steel, once a source of frustration, now provided a comforting rhythm to Anakin's existence. He watched Deku, his young apprentice, parry his attacks, the movements still somewhat clumsy but imbued with a growing confidence that warmed Anakin's heart. Teaching Deku wasn't just about passing on lightsaber combat techniques, it was about something far more profound. It was a form of self-healing. The gaping wound left by Padme's death still ached, a constant dull throb beneath the surface of his stoicism. The anger, the raw, consuming rage that had threatened to consume him, had begun to recede, replaced by a quieter, more introspective sadness. But this new sadness wasn't crippling, it was a more manageable sorrow, shaped and tempered by the act of guiding another. In Deku's struggles, Anakin saw a reflection of his own past. He saw the raw potential, the hesitant steps, the moments of self-doubt that threatened to overwhelm. He remembered his own journey, the turbulent path he had traversed, the temptations of the dark side that had almost swallowed him whole. Through Deku, he was reliving his own formative years, but this time, he was the guiding hand, the steady presence that he himself had craved. There were moments when the old pain would surge, a wave of grief crashing over him, threatening to drown him in despair. He'd feel the phantom weight of Padme's hand in his, the echo of her laughter in his ears. The memories would flood back, the warmth of her smile, the gentle touch of her hand, the quiet comfort of her presence. These moments were agonizing, the sharp edges of his grief still raw and unforgiving. But they were becoming less frequent, shorter in duration. They were no longer the defining characteristic of his existence. He discovered that he could channel this grief, transforming its destructive potential into a wellspring of empathy. He understood Deku's frustrations, his struggles with self-doubt, not merely intellectually, but viscerally. He saw himself in the young boy's desperate attempts to master the lightsaber, the pain of failure echoing his own past mistakes. He could see the flickering flames of hope struggle to remain alight against the winds of adversity. He knew exactly how to kindle them. His patience, once a virtue honed through years of disciplined Jedi training, had evolved into something deeper, more profound. It was a patience born not just of training, but of profound understanding of the human spirit, a recognition of the strength and resilience that could blossom even amidst the harshest trials. He found himself speaking less, listening more, his words measured and thoughtful, infused with a quiet understanding that resonated deeply with Deku. He began to subtly weave lessons about perseverance into their training sessions. He would point to the rugged terrain, scarred by centuries of wind and rain, explaining how even the most formidable obstacles could be overcome through persistent effort. He'd describe the flowing river, its relentless course shaped by the rocks and canyons in its path, demonstrating how obstacles could be navigated, channeled, even leveraged to one's advantage. He was teaching more than just lightsaber combat, he was teaching Deku, and himself, the art of resilience. His teaching style had evolved from that of a stern instructor to a patient mentor. He learned to appreciate the nuances of emotion, understanding how to respond not just to Deku's physical actions, but to his unspoken feelings. He could sense the shift in his apprentice's mood, the tightening of his muscles, the subtle change in his posture, understanding the emotions hidden beneath the surface. The evenings they spent training under the starlit sky became more than mere training sessions. They became moments of shared experience, of unspoken connection. They'd often sit in silence, the only sound the gentle whisper of the wind, each lost in his own thoughts, yet bound together by a shared understanding of struggle and perseverance. As Deku's skills progressed, so did Anakin's emotional healing. The act of teaching, of guiding another, gave his life a renewed purpose, a sense of meaning that had been missing since Padme's death. He discovered that in giving, he was also receiving. In nurturing Deku's potential, he was nurturing his own wounded spirit. One evening, after a particularly grueling training session, Deku sat silently, his face streaked with sweat and dirt. He looked defeated, the weight of his challenges heavy on his young shoulders. Anakin sat beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. He didn't speak, allowing the silence to hang between them, a comfortable silence born of shared understanding. After a while, Deku looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of exhaustion and determination. "It's difficult," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. Anakin smiled gently. "Yes, it is," he replied softly. "But difficulty is not failure. It is an opportunity to learn, to grow, to become stronger." He paused, his gaze drifting towards the distant stars. "And sometimes," he continued, his voice barely a whisper, "it is an opportunity to heal." Deku looked at him, his eyes searching, seeking understanding. In that moment, Anakin saw a flicker of recognition in the boy's eyes, a subtle understanding that transcended words. He knew, in that moment, that his own journey of healing was intertwined with Deku's journey of growth. It was a symbiotic relationship, a healing balm for both of them, a testament to the power of connection and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The training continued, but it was no longer solely about wielding a lightsaber. It was about mastering one's inner strength, about finding the courage to face one's fears, about discovering the resilience hidden within the depths of the human heart. And in that process, both Anakin and Deku found not just strength, but healing. Anakin found redemption in the act of guiding another, while Deku discovered the potential within himself, a strength that would guide him through the trials that lay ahead. Their journey was far from over, but the path ahead was illuminated by the light of hope, a hope reborn in the crucible of their shared experiences, forged in the fires of their mutual struggle, and tempered by the unwavering strength of their bond. The lightsaber was merely a tool, the true weapon was the power of their shared spirit, a beacon of light against the encroaching darkness. The days melted into weeks, the rhythmic clang of their training sessions becoming a familiar soundtrack to their lives. But their bond extended far beyond the lightsaber arena. Evenings found them sharing simple meals, dried rations warmed over a crackling fire, occasionally supplemented by the bounty of the land. These were not just meals, they were rituals, sacred spaces where unspoken words found their expression in shared silences and the clinking of metal utensils. Anakin found himself regaling Deku with stories of his own youth, tales not of galactic battles and Jedi heroism, but of simpler times, of playing games with his siblings on Tatooine, the harsh beauty of the desert landscape, the warmth of his mother's embrace. These were stories devoid of the epic grandeur of the Jedi Order, stories that stripped away the mask of legendary status, revealing a vulnerable, human Anakin. He shared memories of his anxieties, his uncertainties, his struggles to reconcile his innate desire for connection with the stringent demands of his training. In these vulnerable moments, he discovered that he was not only teaching Deku, but also teaching himself how to be a better man, a better father figure. Deku, in turn, shared his own hopes and dreams, his anxieties and fears. He spoke of his quiet life on Earth, of his aspirations, his longing for a future he could barely imagine. He spoke of his struggles, the moments of self-doubt that threatened to engulf him. His words, though often hesitant, were infused with a sincerity that touched Anakin deeply. He spoke of his admiration for All Might, the symbol of hope and justice that had inspired him to pursue his own path of heroism. He talked of his friends, his struggles, his dreams, simple dreams of being a hero, of making a difference in the world. And in listening to Deku's simple dreams, Anakin felt a profound sense of peace. He saw in Deku's aspirations a reflection of the simple, unadulterated hope he had lost after Padme's death. A hope that was reborn in the boy's bright eyes. Their conversations weren't always filled with words. There were moments of shared silence, sitting side by side under the vast expanse of the night sky, the stars shimmering above them like countless diamonds scattered across velvet. These silences were not awkward, they were spaces where unspoken feelings found their expression, a comfortable intimacy forged in the crucible of their shared experiences. In these moments, a deep, unspoken understanding bloomed between them, a bond that transcended the master-apprentice relationship, evolving into something far more profound. Anakin found that his wisdom extended beyond lightsaber techniques. He taught Deku about the importance of compassion, about the strength found in forgiveness, about the resilience of the human spirit. He spoke of the importance of embracing one's flaws, of learning from mistakes, and of never giving up on oneself. These lessons weren't abstract philosophical concepts, they were born from Anakin's own experiences, his triumphs and failures, his moments of darkness and redemption. He spoke of his journey, not as a tale of legendary heroism, but as a human story of growth, failure, and eventual reconciliation. Deku, in his quiet way, offered Anakin something just as valuable, his unwavering support. His faith in Anakin, in his ability to guide him, was a constant source of strength for the weary Jedi. Deku's presence was a balm to Anakin's wounds, a gentle reminder of the inherent goodness within the galaxy, a testament to the enduring power of hope. He was a mirror reflecting back Anakin's own resilience, reminding him of the strength he still possessed. He was a living testament to the power of hope, a hope that Anakin had almost forgotten in the aftermath of his loss. One evening, under the watchful gaze of the twin suns, Anakin shared a particularly difficult memory. He spoke of his descent into darkness, of the manipulations of Palpatine, the fear and anger that had almost consumed him. He spoke of his regret, his shame, his remorse, his tears falling freely, a catharsis years in the making. Deku listened patiently, his gaze steady, his silence a comforting presence. When Anakin finished, Deku simply placed a hand on his arm, a gesture of simple, profound understanding. No words were needed, the unspoken empathy resonated between them, a bond stronger than any spoken promise. In the following weeks, their bond deepened further. They trained tirelessly, pushing each other to their limits. But their relationship transcended the confines of rigorous training. They shared laughter, they shared tears, they shared a silent understanding that spoke volumes more than words ever could. They embarked on joint training missions, navigating treacherous terrain, outsmarting cunning foes, and facing dangers head-on, their combined skills complementing each other beautifully. These shared experiences, these challenges faced together, cemented their bond, forging it into something unbreakable. Anakin saw Deku not just as an apprentice, but as a son he had lost and found again in the most unlikely circumstances. He saw in Deku's tenacity and spirit a reflection of Padme's own indomitable nature, a connection that further strengthened his feelings for the young apprentice. Through it all, their father-son bond became the bedrock of their relationship. It was a bond forged in hardship, nurtured in shared experiences, and strengthened by mutual respect. It was a testament to the human capacity for connection, for healing, and for finding hope even in the darkest of times. Anakin found purpose in guiding Deku, while Deku found strength in Anakin's guidance. Their bond was a healing balm, a source of strength for both of them, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. It was a bond that would serve as a beacon, guiding them through the darkness that lay ahead, a light that would never be extinguished. The journey was far from over, but with each passing day, their bond grew stronger, creating a foundation of unwavering support and mutual respect that would prove invaluable as they faced the challenges to come. They were both changed, forever bound by a love forged in the fires of training, loss, and hope. The path ahead was unclear, but they would face it together, father and son, bound by an unbreakable bond. Chapter 3, The Shadow of Sidious. The tranquility of their secluded training ground began to crack. It wasn't a sudden, violent shattering, but a slow, insidious erosion, like the relentless drip of water wearing away stone. The first sign was almost imperceptible, a flickering in the force, a faint ripple in the otherwise calm current of energy that permeated their secluded world. Anakin, attuned to the subtle shifts in the force as a Jedi Master, felt at first, a discordant note in the harmonious symphony of the galaxy. It was a feeling of unease, a prickling sensation at the back of his neck, a sense of being watched, of being manipulated. He tried to pinpoint the source, but it was elusive, a phantom touch, a whisper on the wind. He shared his unease with Deku, not wanting to alarm the boy, but the shared connection between them, forged in their training and their mutual vulnerability, meant that Anakin's apprehension became Deku's as well. The boy, despite his youth, possessed an uncanny sensitivity to the Force, an inherent ability to sense disturbances, a trait that both amazed and worried Anakin. The following days brought more unsettling occurrences. Strange shadows danced at the periphery of their vision, fleeting glimpses of movement where there was none. Objects shifted inexplicably, a lightsaber resting on a rock would vanish only to reappear elsewhere. The crackling fire seemed to whisper unintelligible words, the flames dancing with unnatural energy. These were not the simple anomalies of a wild, untamed planet, these were deliberate disturbances, carefully orchestrated acts of subtle manipulation. One evening, as they sat beneath the twin suns, the usually clear night sky pulsed with an unnatural, crimson glow. The stars themselves seemed to writhe, distorting into grotesque shapes before settling back into their familiar patterns. This celestial display was not a natural phenomenon, it was a blatant show of force, a display of power that left both Anakin and Deku speechless with awe and apprehension. The air crackled with an unseen energy, a palpable sense of dread filling the space between them. Anakin, drawing on his years of experience battling the darkness, recognized the signs. This was not the work of some random, malevolent entity. This was deliberate, calculated, the kind of manipulation only one being in the galaxy could master with such finesse, Darth Sidious. The mere thought sent a chill down his spine. He had faced the Emperor before, had felt the crushing weight of his dark power, and the memory sent a wave of nausea through him. He couldn't allow history to repeat itself. This time, he wouldn't allow the darkness to consume him or those he cared about. He tried to shield Deku from the full extent of his apprehension, but the boy's sensitivity to the Force was already picking up on the chilling undercurrent of the disturbance. The fear in Deku's eyes was a mirror to the growing fear in Anakin's heart. They needed to be prepared. The whispers started soon after, spreading like a malignant infection through the sparse population of the nearby settlements. Tales of unusual occurrences, of unexplained phenomena, of a dark presence that haunted the land. These were not isolated incidents but an orchestrated campaign of fear, a subtle manipulation aimed at creating an atmosphere of unrest and uncertainty. The whispers were fueled by the disturbances they both experienced, planting seeds of fear and paranoia in the hearts of the locals, making it easier for whatever evil was lurking in the shadows to operate unnoticed. Anakin, ever the strategist, began to piece together the fragments of information. He sensed a deliberate attempt to sow discord and chaos. He noticed subtle shifts in the behavior of some of the more superstitious locals, the way they spoke in hushed tones, avoiding certain areas, their fear palpable even from a distance. He was witnessing, firsthand, the dark power of fear and manipulation being skillfully wielded by a master. He recognized the unmistakable hand of Darth Sidious, the subtle, insidious manipulation that preceded any overt act of aggression. It was the calm before the storm, a meticulously constructed stage for his grand, terrifying performance. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Anakin. He had to protect Deku, not only from the physical threat that Sidious represented but also from the insidious creep of despair and doubt. He needed to instill in the boy a strength and resolve that would withstand the coming darkness. He had failed Padme, had let the darkness consume him, and he would not allow that to happen again. He intensified their training regimen, pushing Deku beyond his limits. This was not simply about honing his skills with a lightsaber, it was about forging an unbreakable spirit, a resilience capable of withstanding the crushing weight of fear and despair. Anakin knew that physical strength alone wouldn't be enough against Sidious, it was mental fortitude, unwavering belief, and unwavering hope that would be their strongest weapons. The nights were filled with tense silence, punctuated only by the crackling of the fire and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth. But despite the growing threat, despite the palpable sense of dread, there was also a strange sense of quiet determination. Father and son, united in their shared purpose, prepared to face the shadow of Sidious. Anakin knew that this was only the beginning. The ominous silence before the storm, the calm before the terrifying tempest of Sidious's power. Their fight was far from over, the battle was just beginning. One day, while exploring the outskirts of their training grounds, they stumbled upon a hidden cave. Within the cave, etched into the ancient stone walls, were strange symbols, pulsing faintly with a dark energy. These symbols were unlike anything Anakin had ever seen, a cryptic script that spoke of immense power and ancient evils. The air in the cave hummed with a chilling energy, the very stones whispering warnings of impending doom. The cave was a conduit of the dark side of the Force, a tangible manifestation of Sidious's presence, a clear indication that his shadow was falling upon them. The discovery served as a grim reminder of the magnitude of the threat they faced. This wasn't just a feeling of unease anymore, it was a direct confrontation, a tangible manifestation of Darth Sidious's influence. This realization solidified their resolve, sharpening their focus and hardening their determination. They were not merely training, they were preparing for war, a war against the very fabric of darkness itself. The following days became a blur of rigorous training, strategic planning, and frantic preparation. Anakin drew upon every ounce of his Jedi knowledge, every experience he had accumulated over years of battling the darkness, to prepare himself and Deku for the inevitable confrontation. He taught Deku not only lightsaber combat techniques, but also the subtle arts of deception, manipulation, and mind control resistance. He knew that facing Sidious would require not only brute force but also strategic thinking, cunning, and unwavering resolve. They learned to anticipate Sidious's tactics, predicting his moves by carefully studying the subtle cues and patterns in the unsettling phenomena that surrounded them. They understood the subtle, intricate strategies that Sidious would employ to exploit their weaknesses. Their bond deepened in the face of this immense threat, evolving into a synergy of minds and spirits, a seamless blend of strength and resilience. As they prepared, Anakin found himself constantly revisiting his past failures, his descent into the dark side, his betrayal of the Jedi Order. This time, he would not allow himself to be manipulated. He would face Sidious with clear eyes and an unwavering commitment to the light. He would protect Deku from the insidious manipulation that had claimed him once before. He would not allow history to repeat itself. The weight of his past failures spurred him to be even more vigilant and dedicated. He channeled his past mistakes into a fervent determination to protect Deku, to ensure that the boy would never succumb to the seductive whispers of the dark side. It was a testament to his resilience, to the strength of his redemption, and a fierce oath to protect innocence against the encroaching darkness. The shadow of Sidious loomed large, but Anakin was ready. He and Deku were ready. They would face the darkness together, father and son, bound by an unbreakable bond forged in the fires of loss, training, and hope. The coming storm would test their resolve, but they were prepared to weather it. The fight had begun, and they would face the darkness head-on. Their secluded training grounds, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison, the pervasive sense of Sidious's presence a suffocating weight. Anakin knew they couldn't face the Emperor alone. They needed allies, powerful individuals who shared their commitment to light and justice. But finding them, convincing them to trust them, would be a challenge as formidable as facing Sidious himself. Their first step was to reach out to the inhabitants of the nearby settlements, the very people whose fears Sidious had been subtly manipulating. Anakin, disguising his true identity, visited the villages under the cover of night, sharing stories of courage and resilience, subtly countering the narrative of fear that had taken root. He spoke of unity, of the power of collective action against oppression, carefully weaving tales of hope and resistance into his narrative. He observed a careful balance of caution and empathy, recognizing that trust was something that needed to be earned, not demanded. He started with the village elders, the keepers of ancient traditions and knowledge. They were the most susceptible to the whispers of fear, their deep-rooted beliefs making them easy prey to Sidious's manipulative tactics. He listened patiently to their stories, validating their fears while simultaneously subtly planting seeds of resistance. He shared insights gleaned from his own experiences, stories of overcoming adversity, of the importance of courage in the face of overwhelming odds. He never explicitly mentioned Sidious, but subtly hinted at a larger, more pervasive threat, urging them to find strength in their unity. The younger generation was more receptive. Their naivety made them less susceptible to the insidious whispers of fear, and their natural inclination towards adventure and heroism made them eager to join a cause. Anakin shared with them stories of heroes from the Jedi Order, stories of courage, self-sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to justice. He emphasized the importance of hope and resilience, subtly implying that the darkness could be defeated if they stood together. Building trust with the locals was a slow, painstaking process. Anakin had to tread carefully, never revealing too much, always keeping a watchful eye for any sign of deception or betrayal. He used his keen observational skills, honed over years of Jedi training, to gauge their true intentions, separating the genuine fear from the manipulation. He discovered subtle inconsistencies in their stories, indicators of Sidious's influence. These inconsistencies served as a crucial foundation in building his counter-narrative. Beyond the villages, Anakin knew they needed to forge alliances with more powerful individuals. His thoughts turned to Ahsoka Tano, his former Padawan. Her loyalty and resilience were unquestionable, her skill with a lightsaber was legendary. He contacted her through a discreet network of informants, a fragile web of communication that allowed him to connect with individuals across the galaxy, a remnant of the old Jedi network. He conveyed his concern in the dire situation, carefully choosing his words to avoid unnecessary panic. The gravity of his message, the quiet urgency in his voice, spoke volumes without needing elaboration. Ahsoka's response was immediate and unwavering. She agreed to meet, her loyalty to Anakin overriding any hesitation she may have felt. Their reunion was filled with a palpable sense of shared purpose and unspoken understanding. They planned their next steps, discussing strategies, coordinating their efforts. They understood the magnitude of the threat, the scale of the challenge before them. Their years of working together had forged a bond of trust and understanding that would prove invaluable in their upcoming battles. Next, Anakin sought out other powerful allies. He contacted Mace Windu, despite the lingering tensions from their past. He knew Mace's wisdom and strength would be essential to their cause. The message was blunt and to the point, devoid of sentimentality, but laced with the urgency of the situation. He shared information about Sidious's subtle manipulations, his calculated moves to establish a foothold. Mace was skeptical, as he had expected, but he respected Anakin's insights and couldn't deny the gravity of the circumstances. Their alliance with other powerful forces was not straightforward. Some were reluctant to believe the warnings, others were too preoccupied with their own concerns to offer help. But Anakin, drawing on his years of experience negotiating alliances, used diplomacy and persuasion to win their support. He emphasized the common threat they all faced, the devastating consequences that would follow if they failed to act. He crafted a narrative of unity, appealing to their sense of justice and their determination to protect the galaxy. The negotiations were fraught with tension and mistrust. There were disagreements, conflicts of interest, and moments of doubt. But Anakin's unwavering determination, his unwavering belief in the cause, eventually helped to bridge the divides, forge alliances, and establish a network of support that stretched across the galaxy. The slow, painstaking process of building trust and cooperation had yielded significant results. Building this network was not merely about gathering strength, it was also about forging new bonds, creating a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose. Anakin and Deku found themselves at the center of this network, their roles as leaders, mentors, and guides solidifying their position. Their experiences, their shared struggles, cemented the bonds that connected them. Throughout this process, Deku was not merely a passive observer, he played an active role in forging alliances. His unique connection to the Force, his sensitivity to emotional currents, allowed him to detect subtle shifts in alliances, warning of potential betrayals and strengthening alliances. He became a crucial asset to their cause, his youthful enthusiasm and unwavering belief inspiring others. The culmination of their efforts resulted in a diverse coalition of heroes, a network of support that extended across various factions, bridging divides and fostering collaboration. They were not merely allies, they were a family, united by their shared purpose, their unwavering commitment to fight against the encroaching darkness. Their strength lay not just in their individual abilities but in their ability to trust, collaborate, and fight as one. The shadow of Sidious was still vast, but they were no longer alone. Their journey had led them to a crucial point, a strategic advantage, a formidable alliance prepared to face the Emperor's wrath. The coming confrontation would be a test of their resolve, but they were ready, armed not only with their skills but also with the unwavering support of their allies. The battle for the galaxy's future was about to begin. Their newly formed alliance, while a source of strength, was built on fragile foundations. Trust, even amongst those united by a common enemy, took time to cultivate. Anakin and Deku knew that gathering information was paramount, knowing Sidious's plan was their only hope of thwarting him. Their first lead came from an unexpected source, a grizzled, one-eyed historian living in seclusion on the remote planet of Tython, a world steeped in ancient Jedi lore. The historian, known only as Master Vrook, was rumored to possess knowledge dating back millennia, a repository of secrets lost to time. Reaching Tython proved a challenge in itself. The planet was shrouded in dense nebulae, its location carefully guarded, known only to a select few. They relied on Ahsoka's network of informants, navigating a labyrinthine web of contacts, each connection carrying a risk. The journey was fraught with peril, navigating treacherous asteroid fields and evading Imperial patrols. The constant tension kept them on edge, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. The suspense was thick, each passing moment a gamble. Upon arriving at Tython, they found Master Vrook living in a humble dwelling, surrounded by stacks of ancient scrolls and datapads. His eyes, though clouded with age, held a spark of intelligence that hinted at his vast knowledge. He initially resisted their pleas, his trust eroded by years of isolation and the pervasive fear that had gripped the galaxy. Anakin, however, employing the diplomatic skills he'd honed over the years, patiently explained the urgency of their situation, emphasizing the impending threat to the galaxy. He carefully presented the evidence they had gathered, subtly highlighting the inconsistencies in the narrative that Sidious was weaving. He stressed the shared commitment to justice that united them, their shared concern for the fate of the galaxy. Master Vrook, after listening intently, revealed his knowledge of the ancient prophecies, cryptic texts that foretold of a Dark Lord's rise and fall. These prophecies spoke of a weapon, a superweapon of unimaginable power, capable of obliterating entire planets. He explained that this weapon was the key to Sidious's plan, the culmination of his decades-long scheme to dominate the galaxy. The prophecies were fragmented, their meaning obscured by time and deliberate obfuscation. They spoke of a nexus point, a location where the dark side of the Force was particularly strong, a point of convergence that would amplify the weapon's power. Master Vrook's own research suggested this nexus point was located on the desolate planet of Moraband, Darth Vader's homeworld. The implications of this discovery sent a chill down their spines, a sense of dread washing over them. Leaving Tython, they carried with them a weight heavier than any physical burden. The knowledge they'd gained was both a boon and a curse, fueling their determination while simultaneously deepening their sense of dread. The journey to Moraband was even more treacherous. They had to contend with not only the harsh realities of space travel but also Imperial patrols, significantly intensified following the unrest Anakin had stirred. The journey was a test of endurance, requiring them to stretch their limits. They experienced setbacks and moments of near failure. They encountered unexpected allies along the way. A smuggler, initially motivated by the promise of credits, unexpectedly revealed his loyalty to the light, risking his life to help them navigate the treacherous space lanes. This act of selfless courage solidified their belief in the enduring strength of the good that still existed in the galaxy. Their trust in this smuggler was a testament to their ability to discern genuine allies amidst the chaos. On Moraband, the very air crackled with dark energy. The planet itself seemed to exude malevolence, mirroring the darkness residing within its most notorious inhabitants' past. They found ancient Sith temples, crumbling remnants of a bygone era, echoing with the whispers of long-dead Sith lords. Navigating these treacherous ruins, they faced terrifying challenges, including ancient traps and guardians that defended the long-lost secrets of the Sith. Deku, with his innate sensitivity to the Force, played a crucial role in navigating these perils, warning of imminent dangers and assisting in uncovering hidden passages. Their search led them to a hidden chamber, containing a holographic recording of a long-dead Sith Lord, revealing further details about the superweapon. The recording depicted the weapon in its entirety, revealing its capabilities and revealing its construction. The plans provided a frightening glimpse into Sidious's ambition and the sheer destructive power he sought to wield. It demonstrated the horrifying extent of his malice. This newly acquired knowledge made their task crystal clear: they had to stop Sidious at any cost. But the recording also revealed another piece of information, a crucial piece that deepened their understanding of the situation. It spoke of a countermeasure, a way to disrupt the weapon's power, a mechanism that could neutralize the threat. The countermeasure was itself a hidden power, but it needed a specific key, a crystalline artifact imbued with the energy of the light side of the Force, located somewhere in the lost Jedi temple on Ossus. This discovery, while promising, added another layer of complexity and urgency to their mission. The race against time had become even more critical. They had to not only stop the weapon but also find the countermeasure and learn how to activate it. The path forward was clear, yet daunting. They had unraveled a significant piece of Sidious's plan, but time was running out. The journey to Ossus, the search for the crystalline artifact, and the final confrontation with Sidious, all loomed ahead. But for now, they rested, the weight of their new knowledge settling upon them as they prepared for the next leg of their treacherous journey. They understood that the final battle was on the horizon. The future of the galaxy rested on their shoulders, and their resolve burned brighter than ever before. They had a plan, a formidable alliance, and the knowledge to fight back. The dark shadow of Sidious still loomed large, but they were no longer unprepared. The humid air hung heavy in the training chamber on Ossus, a stark contrast to the sterile, metallic scent of Imperial facilities they'd grown accustomed to evading. Anakin, his breath misting in the cool air, launched into a series of precise lightsaber strikes, each movement a blur of controlled power. Deku, mirroring his movements with surprising agility, deflected each blow with practiced ease, his own blade a shimmering emerald counterpoint to Anakin's fiery orange. Their synchronized movements were a testament to weeks of rigorous training, a testament to the bond forged in the crucible of their shared struggle. This wasn't just about honing their physical skills, it was about synchronizing their minds, their very essence. They practiced coordinated attacks, combining their strengths to overcome simulated adversaries. Anakin's raw power and aggressive style complemented Deku's precise, almost surgical technique. They moved as one, anticipating each other's movements, their minds linked through the Force, a symphony of coordinated action. They sparred for hours, pushing each other to their limits, each session ending in exhausted but satisfied silence. Ahsoka, ever vigilant, observed from the shadows, her own lightsaber deactivated but held at the ready. She noted the subtle shifts in their techniques, the increasing harmony between their styles, the growing trust that bound them. This was more than just physical training, it was a forging of a bond that would prove crucial in the coming battle. Her own training regime was equally rigorous, honing her skills in stealth, infiltration, and espionage, skills essential for the support role she would play. Their training wasn't limited to lightsaber combat. They studied ancient Jedi texts, poring over strategies and tactics employed by Jedi masters throughout history. They analyzed past battles, learning from both successes and failures. Anakin, with his experience in the Clone Wars, brought a wealth of practical knowledge, while Deku's innate understanding of the Force provided unique insights into enemy strategies and weaknesses. Together, they devised new combat strategies, tailored to their unique strengths and weaknesses, and the anticipated challenges they would face. One evening, huddled around a crackling fire, they discussed their upcoming confrontation with Sidious. The weight of their responsibility was palpable, a heavy blanket draped over their shoulders. The holographic recording they'd found on Moraband had left an indelible mark on them, a chilling reminder of the overwhelming power they were about to face. The sheer scale of Sidious's ambition, his relentless pursuit of ultimate power, filled them with both dread and resolve. "He's not just powerful," Anakin said, his voice low and serious. "He's cunning. He anticipates our moves, he manipulates events to his advantage." Deku nodded, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames. "He's a master of deception, weaving intricate webs of illusion and manipulation. We have to be prepared for anything. We need a strategy that accounts for his unpredictability." Ahsoka added, her voice quiet but firm, "We also need to understand his weaknesses. No one is invincible. We need to find the chinks in his armor, the vulnerabilities that will allow us to prevail." Their discussions extended beyond pure strategy. They delved into the psychological aspects of the conflict, acknowledging the importance of maintaining mental fortitude in the face of overwhelming odds. Anakin, haunted by past failures, acknowledged the need to control his emotions, to avoid the dark impulses that had nearly consumed him. Deku, ever mindful of his own limitations, emphasized the importance of self-belief and unwavering determination. They shared their fears, their doubts, and their hopes, strengthening their resolve through mutual support. Their training regime also encompassed meditation and mental exercises designed to enhance their connection with the Force. They practiced calming their minds, sharpening their senses, and enhancing their intuitive abilities. They worked together, creating a protective barrier of energy, amplifying each other's strength, a practice that mirrored their growing bond. This mental discipline would prove crucial in resisting Sidious's attempts to manipulate them through the Force. The preparation wasn't solely focused on combat. They also gathered intelligence, painstakingly piecing together information about Sidious's movements, his plans, and his allies. They utilized Ahsoka's network of informants, carefully verifying information and cross-referencing sources. They understood that intelligence was as much a weapon as their lightsabers. Days bled into weeks, each session pushing them further towards their peak performance. They weren't just physically preparing, they were mentally and emotionally preparing themselves for a battle that could determine the fate of the galaxy. The weight of this responsibility was immense, but their determination burned bright. They knew the odds were stacked against them, but they were ready to face them head-on, armed with their skills, their knowledge, and their unyielding belief in the light. One evening, amidst the rigorous training, Anakin paused, his hand resting on his lightsaber hilt. He looked at Deku and Ahsoka, his eyes filled with a mixture of determination and apprehension. "We've trained hard," he said, his voice laced with exhaustion and a hint of doubt. "But is it enough?" Deku met his gaze, a reassuring smile on his face. "It's not about being enough, Anakin," he replied. "It's about doing everything we can, with everything we have. We may not be certain of victory, but we will fight with courage and determination." That's what matters. Ahsoka nodded in agreement. We may face overwhelming odds, she added. But we also have something Sidious doesn't: hope. We have the strength of our alliance, the power of the light, and the belief in a better future. That's our weapon. Their words were a balm to Anakin's anxieties, a reaffirmation of their commitment, their shared purpose. They spent the rest of the evening in quiet reflection, preparing themselves, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually for the battle that lay ahead. The weight of their mission was immense, the challenges daunting, but their resolve was unshaken. The shadow of Sidious loomed large, but they were ready to meet it, united, prepared, and fueled by a shared hope for a brighter tomorrow. The final battle was imminent, and they were ready. The time for preparation was over, the time for action had arrived. The following days were a blur of intense preparation. They refined their strategies, practicing intricate maneuvers designed to exploit Sidious's anticipated weaknesses. Anakin, drawing on his vast experience in the Clone Wars, focused on aggressive tactics, designed to overwhelm the Sith Lord with a relentless barrage of attacks. Deku, ever the strategist, countered with precise, calculated strikes, aiming for specific pressure points, utilizing the Force to enhance his speed and precision. Ahsoka, meanwhile, honed her skills in reconnaissance and infiltration, planning crucial diversionary tactics to create openings for Anakin and Deku to exploit. Their training extended beyond the physical. They spent hours meditating, focusing on strengthening their connection with the Force. They practiced shielding their minds from external influence, a crucial defense against Sidious's formidable psychic abilities. They learned to anticipate each other's movements, their minds seamlessly intertwined, a testament to the deep bond they had forged. This wasn't simply a matter of combat prowess, it was a dance of trust, a symphony of shared purpose. One evening, deep within the Ossus training complex, amidst the echoing silence of the ancient Jedi temple, Anakin sat alone, his face etched with worry. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon him. He wasn't just fighting for himself, or for Deku and Ahsoka, he was fighting for the galaxy. The fate of countless worlds rested on his shoulders, a burden that threatened to crush him. He thought of the countless lives lost during the Clone Wars, lives he felt responsible for saving, lives he had ultimately failed to protect. He traced the familiar contours of his lightsaber hilt, the smooth metal a cold comfort in his anxious hands. The possibility of failure haunted him, the specter of another devastating loss threatening to engulf him. He'd come so far, overcome so much, yet the enormity of this task loomed, a gigantic shadow eclipsing his hope. He felt the familiar pull of the dark side, a whisper in the back of his mind urging him to succumb to his fears, to embrace the power that offered a false promise of control. But he fought back, drawing strength from the light side, from the memories of those he loved, from the hope of a future free from the tyranny of the Sith. Deku found him there, sensing his distress. He sat beside him, offering silent companionship, his presence a calming influence in the tense atmosphere. The weight of the galaxy isn't something you carry alone, Anakin, Deku said softly, his voice barely a whisper. We share it. We face it together. Anakin looked at him, gratitude welling up within him. I know, he replied, his voice heavy with emotion. But the thought of failing, of letting everyone down. He trailed off, unable to articulate the depth of his fears. Deku nodded understandingly. We all fear failure, Anakin. But fear is not a reason to surrender. It's a reason to fight harder, to prepare more meticulously, to give everything we have. He placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder, offering a silent reassurance. We have prepared ourselves. We have honed our skills. We have strengthened our bond. We will face Sidious with everything we've got. Their conversation extended late into the night, a quiet exchange of fears and hopes, anxieties and assurances. They spoke not just of strategy, but of sacrifice, of the possibility of death, of the price they might have to pay for the freedom of the galaxy. They acknowledged the possibility of loss, the potential for heartbreak, yet their resolve remained unshaken. Their shared burden, though immense, had forged a bond of unbreakable strength. They were not merely comrades in arms, they were brothers in spirit, united in their commitment to justice, bound by their shared dream of a peaceful future. Ahsoka, ever the vigilant observer, watched them from a distance, her heart filled with a mixture of admiration and concern. She knew the weight of their burden, the immense pressure they were under. She understood their fears, their doubts, their hesitations. She, too, carried the weight of responsibility, the knowledge that her actions could determine the success or failure of their mission. But she also knew their strength, their courage, their unwavering commitment to the light. She had faith in them, in their ability to overcome the seemingly insurmountable odds that lay ahead. In the days leading up to their confrontation with Sidious, they engaged in rigorous mental exercises, pushing their minds and spirits to their limits. They meditated together, creating a unified energy field, a powerful shield against the dark side's influence. They sought to transcend their physical limitations, to reach a state of unity and harmony, to become something greater than the sum of their individual parts. Anakin, wrestling with his inner demons, focused on controlling his anger, his fear, his relentless drive for revenge. He understood the danger of succumbing to the dark side, of allowing his emotions to cloud his judgment. He channeled his rage into focused energy, transforming his destructive impulses into powerful, controlled attacks. He drew strength from his memories of Padme, of his love for her, a force stronger than any dark temptation. Deku, ever the beacon of hope, focused on maintaining his composure, his unwavering belief in the light. He understood the importance of maintaining his mental fortitude, of remaining resolute in the face of overwhelming odds. He drew strength from his friends, from his belief in the good that resided in the heart of every living being. He knew that even in the darkest of times, hope remained a powerful weapon, capable of turning the tide of battle. Ahsoka focused on her role as a tactical support, planning elaborate diversions, creating openings for Anakin and Deku to exploit. She used her knowledge of Sidious's tactics and strategies to anticipate his moves, developing countermeasures designed to disrupt his plans and throw him off balance. She was the silent guardian, the watchful protector, ensuring their success through meticulous planning and execution. The night before their final confrontation, they gathered around a crackling fire, the flames casting dancing shadows on their faces. A silence hung in the air, a palpable sense of anticipation permeating the atmosphere. They looked at each other, their eyes reflecting a mixture of fear, determination, and unwavering hope. They had done everything they could to prepare themselves, but the final outcome remained uncertain. "We face a formidable foe," Anakin said, his voice low and steady. "The most powerful Sith Lord in history." Deku nodded in agreement. "But we are not unprepared. We have trained hard. We have strengthened our bond. We are ready to face him." Ahsoka added, her voice filled with conviction, "We will fight for what we believe in. We will fight for a future free from tyranny and oppression. We will fight for hope." Their words, though simple, held a profound meaning, a testament to their unwavering commitment, their unyielding belief in the light. The weight of responsibility, the shadow of Sidious, still loomed large, but their resolve remained unshaken. They were ready to face the challenges that lay ahead, united by their shared purpose, their unwavering determination, and their enduring hope for a brighter tomorrow. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if the light would prevail against the encroaching darkness. The dawn of the final battle was at hand. Chapter 4, Facing the Enemy. The crimson glow of the setting twin suns painted the ravaged cityscape in hues of blood and fire. The air hung thick with the smell of ozone and burning metal, a testament to the brutal conflict that had already consumed this once vibrant sector of Coruscant. Anakin, Deku, and Ahsoka emerged from the shadows, their forms silhouetted against the inferno. They were no longer within the confines of the training complex. The sterile environment of their preparation was replaced by the raw, visceral reality of war. Their first encounter wasn't with Sidious himself, but with his vanguard, a legion of elite Sith troopers, their armor gleaming menacingly under the flickering flames, their crimson lightsabers humming with dark energy. The troopers moved with terrifying precision, their movements synchronized, their attacks coordinated with deadly efficiency. They were a force to be reckoned with, a living embodiment of the Sith Lord's ruthless power. Anakin, his lightsaber blazing a furious blue, charged into the fray, a whirlwind of motion and focused rage. He moved like a force of nature, his attacks relentless, his movements fluid and precise. He deflected blaster bolts with practiced ease, his blade a blur of motion, carving a path through the ranks of the enemy. He felt the dark side's tempting whisper, a siren song promising power and control, but he held steadfast to the light, focusing his anger into controlled fury, his every strike a testament to his unwavering resolve. Deku, in stark contrast, moved with a calculated grace, his lightsaber a shimmering emerald, each movement precise and purposeful. He didn't rely on brute force, instead, he employed a combination of elegant parries, deceptive maneuvers, and force-enhanced speed to outmaneuver his opponents. His mastery of the Force was evident in his every move, his abilities amplified by his deep connection with the light side. He anticipated his opponent's attacks, predicting their movements with uncanny accuracy, turning their own strength against them. He focused his energy, not on destruction, but on defense and precision, his strikes strategically aimed to incapacitate rather than kill. Ahsoka, a shadow amidst the chaos, danced through the battlefield, her twin lightsabers a blur of crimson and white. She wasn't focused on direct confrontation, Her role was to disrupt and disorient, creating openings for Anakin and Deku to exploit. She moved with a feline grace, her movements fluid and swift, her presence a constant threat that kept the Sith troopers off balance. She used the environment to her advantage, utilizing the burning buildings and shattered structures as cover, her movements a ballet of calculated chaos. Her lightsabers were extensions of her will, a reflection of her agility and strategic mind. She used the Force to enhance her speed, her reflexes, and her overall tactical awareness, always seeking to create openings for her companions to capitalize on. The battle raged, a cacophony of lightsaber clashes, blaster fire, and the desperate cries of the combatants. The ground trembled under the force of the conflict, the air thick with the energy of the Force. The Sith troopers, though formidable, were no match for the combined might of Anakin, Deku, and Ahsoka. Their synchronized movements, their perfectly timed attacks, their unwavering determination formed an unstoppable force. Anakin, drawing on his extensive experience in the Clone Wars, developed a strategy to overcome the troopers' coordinated attacks. He used his superior strength and aggression to create diversions, drawing the troopers' attention and creating openings for Deku's precise strikes. He pushed himself beyond his limits, his movements fueled by his sheer will to win. He faced down a group of 3 elite troopers, each of them exceptionally skilled, and using his strength he outmatched their ability, utilizing a complex series of maneuvers he'd only developed during training. Each clash sent sparks flying, and his lightsaber sings as he overpowers his foes, ending the confrontation with a series of perfectly timed cuts. Deku, employing his mastery of the Force, used telekinesis to disarm several troopers, throwing their lightsabers and blasters aside with pinpoint accuracy. He then used this advantage to create choke points, forcing the remaining troopers into vulnerable positions where Anakin could effectively eliminate them. His ability to predict his opponent's movements allowed him to anticipate and counter their assaults, transforming a chaotic battle into a precisely choreographed dance of destruction. Ahsoka, meanwhile, continued her guerrilla tactics, using the cityscape to her advantage. She scaled burning buildings, leaping from rooftop to rooftop, her movements fluid and swift. She used smoke bombs and strategically placed detonators to create diversions, further disrupting the troopers' coordination and creating even more opportunities for her friends to strike. She outmaneuvered and outpaced her pursuers, leaving a trail of chaos and confusion in her wake. Her strategic mind, coupled with her exceptional agility and her deep connection to the Force, proved an invaluable asset to the team. As the battle reached its climax, a towering Sith juggernaut emerged from the shadows, its heavy weaponry and formidable armor a stark reminder of the Empire's overwhelming might. This hulking machine, equipped with heavy cannons and a powerful energy shield, represented a significant threat, capable of turning the tide of battle. However, the trio had anticipated this development and were prepared. Anakin, using his raw power and instinctive combat prowess, focused his attacks on the Juggernaut's weak points, exploiting gaps in its armor and disabling its targeting systems. He used his lightsaber to cut through its shields, allowing Deku to use the Force to overload the Juggernaut's internal systems, leading to a catastrophic explosion that brought the machine down. Deku, meanwhile, relied on his intelligence and precise strategy. He didn't just attack the Juggernaut directly, instead, he focused on dismantling its defensive mechanisms, creating openings for Anakin's relentless assault. His strategic thinking, combined with his incredible mastery of the Force, proved instrumental in neutralizing the Juggernaut's threat, rendering it helpless against Anakin's offensive. Ahsoka, during this confrontation with the Juggernaut, employed a series of calculated distractions, keeping the Juggernaut's attention focused on her while Anakin and Deku worked to disable it. Her agility and strategic mind proved critical in facilitating her allies' success, securing their victory against this formidable adversary. She worked in tandem with them, her actions seamlessly interwoven with their own, creating a perfect harmony of skill and strategy that proved devastatingly effective. With the Juggernaut destroyed, the remaining Sith troopers, demoralized and outnumbered, surrendered. The battle was won, but the victory was hard-fought, the cost high. The ravaged cityscape, a testament to the brutal conflict, served as a stark reminder of the gravity of their mission. Anakin, Deku, and Ahsoka surveyed the scene, their bodies aching, their minds weary, but their spirits unbroken. They had faced Sidious's forces and emerged victorious, but the true challenge, the confrontation with the Sith Lord himself, still lay ahead. The fight for the galaxy's future was far from over. Their journey had just begun. The weight of the galaxy remained, but the victory, however small, fueled their resolve, forging an even stronger bond between them. The next challenge loomed, and they were ready. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the final confrontation. The rhythmic clang of metal on metal, the whine of energy blasts, and the guttural roars of battle filled the air. Reinforcements, a diverse and unexpected coalition, arrived on the scene, a testament to the far-reaching influence Anakin, Deku, and Ahsoka had managed to cultivate in their desperate bid to thwart Sidious. First came a squadron of nimble ARC-170 starfighters, their laser cannons spitting emerald bolts of energy, raining down suppressing fire on the remaining Sith troopers. Their pilots, veteran clone troopers from Anakin's own 501st Legion, expertly maneuvered through the chaotic battlefield, their movements as fluid as a well-rehearsed dance. Their precision strikes targeted specific groups of troopers, disrupting their formations and forcing them into defensive postures, creating opportune moments for the ground team to exploit. Each pilot, weathered and battle-hardened, fought with the grim determination of those who'd seen countless battles and knew the stakes too well. Simultaneously, a wave of Jedi Knights, their lightsabers blazing in a rainbow of colors, stormed from the adjacent buildings. Their arrival was unexpected, a well-timed surprise attack that caught the Sith off guard. They fought with an unwavering unity, a testament to the strong bonds of the Jedi Order. Their varied fighting styles, a kaleidoscope of elegant parries and furious strikes, overwhelmed the scattered Sith troopers, tearing through their lines with swift and decisive blows. Their collective power, a harmonious blend of strength and precision, effectively shattered the remaining resistance. Their arrival was a resounding affirmation of the power of cooperation and the unwavering faith of their alliance. Amongst the Jedi ranks, a familiar face emerged, Mace Windu, his purple lightsaber cutting through the air like a bolt of lightning. His mastery of the Force, his experience, and his sheer force of will provided a powerful boost to their collective strength. He was the embodiment of calm amidst the chaos, an anchor of hope against the storm of the dark side. His commands rang out, clear and precise, coordinating the actions of the Jedi Knights with the same masterful skill that characterized his every lightsaber strike. With each cut, his presence strengthened, his resolve unshaken, bolstering the morale of those around him. But the reinforcements weren't limited to Jedi. A contingent of skilled Mandalorian warriors, clad in their distinctive Beskar armor, arrived with a thunderous roar, their pulse rifles spitting devastating blasts of energy. Their disciplined ranks advanced in a coordinated assault, their precision devastatingly effective. Their fighting style was brutal and uncompromising. They moved as one, a cohesive fighting unit, their combined firepower ripping through the enemy lines. Each warrior represented the strength and resilience of their people, fighting not only for themselves, but also for their legacy. Their strength was undeniable, a stark contrast to the elegant precision of the Jedi, yet equally effective. Further adding to the unexpected alliance was a small group of nimble Wookiees, their roars echoing through the ruins. Their raw strength and ferocious combat style were a sight to behold. These powerful warriors wielded their weapons with unmatched ferocity, their blows crushing bone and shattering armor. Each roar was a testament to their strength, their blows a symphony of destruction. Their ferocity was matched only by their unwavering loyalty and their unwavering determination, a tribute to their enduring bond with the rebel cause. The battle intensified, transforming into a maelstrom of energy blasts, lightsaber clashes, and desperate cries. Anakin, Deku, and Ahsoka, though battered and bruised, fought with renewed vigor, their spirits lifted by the unexpected arrival of their allies. The combined might of their forces turned the tide, pushing back the overwhelming assault of the Sith. Amidst the chaos, Ahsoka found herself engaged in a fierce duel with a formidable Sith Inquisitor. The Inquisitor, a skilled swordsman with a mastery of dark side abilities, pressed Ahsoka relentlessly, forcing her to utilize every ounce of her skill and cunning. The clash of their lightsabers echoed through the crumbling cityscape, sparks flying as they traded blows with deadly precision. Ahsoka, nimble and agile, expertly deflected the Inquisitor's strikes while simultaneously seeking to exploit any opening. The battle was a test of skill, strategy, and endurance, a mesmerizing dance of death played out against a backdrop of fire and destruction. She pushed herself to the limit, drawing upon every aspect of her training, and in a whirlwind of acrobatic movement, she disarmed the Inquisitor, leaving him vulnerable and defeated. Meanwhile, Deku found himself facing a group of highly trained Sith troopers. Using his masterful understanding of the Force, he manipulated the environment to his advantage, unleashing a wave of debris to incapacitate his opponents before unleashing a flurry of precise strikes with his lightsaber. His movements were a combination of elegance and brutality, his technique flawlessly executed, making the fight appear almost effortless. His calculated precision, his strategic mind, and his mastery of the Force worked in concert, creating a devastating combination that quickly overwhelmed the remaining Sith. Anakin, ever the aggressive warrior, charged headfirst into the thickest of the fighting. His powerful lightsaber, a beacon of hope in the face of darkness, tore through the enemy ranks. His sheer strength, coupled with his innate talent and the power of the light side, made him an unstoppable force. He used his aggression to create diversions, his movements a whirlwind of calculated fury, distracting and overwhelming his foes. He single-handedly repelled wave after wave of attacks, his resilience and determination unwavering in the face of insurmountable odds. As the last of the Sith troopers fell, a hush descended upon the battlefield. The combined efforts of the diverse alliance had secured a hard-fought victory. The smoke cleared, revealing the extent of the destruction, a testament to the ferocity of the battle. But amidst the ruins, a sense of shared triumph prevailed. The unlikely alliance, forged in the crucible of war, had proved its strength. The unlikely collaboration between Jedi, clone troopers, Mandalorians, and Wookiees was a testament to the unifying power of a common goal, a clear demonstration of the power of hope and perseverance. They had faced a seemingly insurmountable obstacle and, through teamwork, shared sacrifice, and mutual respect, they had achieved the impossible. The victory, while hard-won, was a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness, a testament to the strength of unity and the enduring spirit of the fight for freedom. The path ahead remained treacherous, but for now, they stood together, stronger and more united than ever before. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The journey continues. The aftermath of the battle hung heavy in the air, a miasma of smoke and the metallic tang of blood. While Anakin, his lightsaber deactivated, surveyed the scene with a grim satisfaction, Ahsoka tended to a wounded clone trooper, her brow furrowed in concentration. Deku, however, stood apart, his breathing ragged, a strange energy thrumming beneath his skin. The fight hadn't left him unscathed, bruises bloomed across his arms and legs, a testament to the ferocity of the Sith troopers' attacks. Yet, it wasn't the physical wounds that concerned him. It was the unfamiliar power surging within him, a potent energy that pulsed with a life of its own. He felt different, stronger, faster. The Force, usually a gentle current flowing through him, now roared like a tempest, a wild, untamed energy that threatened to overwhelm him. He stumbled back, his hand instinctively going to his chest, where a dull ache throbbed in rhythm with the power coursing through his veins. It felt like a star had ignited within him, a miniature sun burning with an incandescent light. This wasn't the measured, controlled strength he'd cultivated through rigorous training. This was something raw, untamed, almost terrifying in its intensity. He closed his eyes, focusing on the inner storm, attempting to channel, to control the chaotic energy. It was like trying to tame a wild stallion, its power magnificent but its unpredictability dangerous. He could feel the Force, not as a subtle guide but as a vibrant, almost tangible presence, eager to be unleashed. Fear warred with exhilaration, the sheer magnitude of this new power both exhilarating and frightening. This was something beyond his understanding, a potential that he hadn't even dreamt of possessing. A low growl escaped his lips, a sound of both awe and apprehension. He opened his eyes, his vision sharpened, the world around him appearing clearer, sharper, as if viewed through a lens of heightened perception. He could sense the subtle vibrations of the ground, the faintest whispers of the wind, the residual energy signatures of the battle still lingering in the air. He could feel the life force of the injured troopers, the faint heartbeat of the fallen Sith soldiers. As he moved, the newfound power flowed through him, enhancing his every movement, making him feel weightless, almost ethereal. He lifted a fallen piece of debris, a large chunk of concrete, with a single, effortless hand. He hadn't even intended to do it, the action occurring almost by reflex, the sheer power emanating from within him so overwhelming that his body moved independently of his conscious control. The concrete block hovered in the air, a testament to the strength now coursing through his veins. Slowly, carefully, he lowered it back to the ground, a palpable tremor passing through his frame. This was unlike anything he'd ever experienced, a power that dwarfed his previous capabilities. Anakin, sensing the shift in the Force, turned to Deku, his eyes widening in astonishment. "Deku," he said, his voice laced with a mixture of awe and concern, "what is happening?" Deku himself didn't know. He focused, trying to understand the source of this incredible energy, but it remained an enigma, a powerful surge within him that defied explanation. He tried to draw upon the techniques he'd learned, the carefully honed skills developed through years of arduous training, but this power was different, almost alien. It wasn't about precise movements or measured control, it was something visceral, untamed, a force of nature unleashed. Ahsoka, too, noticed the change in Deku, abandoning the wounded trooper to approach cautiously. Her normally bright eyes were filled with a mixture of concern and wonder. "Deku, are you all right?" she asked, her voice gentle yet firm, her hand reaching out as if to steady him. He nodded slowly, his mind still reeling from the experience.
I don't know," he stammered, his voice barely a whisper.
"I feel different. Stronger. But I don't understand. The sudden surge of power, however, was not without its drawbacks. The intense energy was overwhelming, bordering on painful. He could feel the pressure building inside him, a constant hum that threatened to tear him apart. It was a thrilling, terrifying sensation, a double-edged sword that offered immense strength but threatened to consume him. He could feel the potential for incredible power, but also the potential for self-destruction. He was walking a tightrope, balancing on the edge of mastery and annihilation. The battle had changed him, and not just physically. This newfound power was a reflection of his internal evolution, a culmination of his unwavering determination, his unwavering belief in himself, and his relentless pursuit of strength. His journey had been fraught with self-doubt and hardship, but he had persevered, overcoming obstacles that had seemed insurmountable. This surge of power was a testament to his resilience, a manifestation of his inner strength. As he stood there, grappling with this newfound power, the weight of responsibility settled upon him. This wasn't just about personal growth, it was about the greater good, about protecting those he cared for, about upholding the principles he believed in. He had a responsibility to understand this power, to control it, to use it for the benefit of all. It wasn't merely a personal breakthrough, but a potential turning point in the ongoing battle against the dark side, a potential game changer. He was not just a student of the Force, he was becoming a force to be reckoned with. The journey to master this new power would be difficult, fraught with challenges, but he was prepared to face them, armed with his newfound abilities and unwavering resolve. The battle was won, but a new chapter, a more powerful and potentially dangerous one, had begun. The unexpected surge of power was a catalyst, forcing Deku to confront not only the physical challenges of harnessing this incredible energy but also the deeper, psychological implications. The experience brought him closer to understanding the true potential within himself, beyond the limits he had previously imposed on his abilities. It was a lesson in self-belief, a profound affirmation that even in the face of overwhelming odds, human potential was limitless. His journey was far from over, yet this incredible surge provided him with an immense boost, the realization that the greatest battles were not fought on the battlefield, but within the depths of one's own spirit. The setting sun cast long shadows across the ravaged battlefield, painting the scene in hues of orange and purple. The air, thick with the smell of smoke and destruction, was gradually clearing, revealing the true extent of the damage. Yet, amidst the devastation, a palpable sense of hope permeated the air. The victory had come at a cost, but they had prevailed. The unlikely alliance, forged in the crucible of war, had proved its mettle, showcasing the power of unity, courage, and unwavering belief. As Deku stood there, his body still humming with the residual power, he knew this was not just a victory, but a transformation. He was not just a hero, he was becoming something more, something far greater than he ever imagined. The path ahead remained uncertain, the challenges formidable, but with this newfound power, he faced the future with a newfound sense of purpose and confidence. He had faced his fears, embraced his potential, and emerged stronger than ever before. The war against the darkness was far from over, but with every challenge, with every obstacle overcome, his resolve only grew stronger, his spirit unyielding. The journey had just begun, and Deku was ready. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ravaged battlefield. The air, still thick with the acrid smell of burning plasteel and ozone, slowly cleared, revealing the extent of the destruction. Scattered amidst the debris were the fallen, both clone troopers and the menacing Sith soldiers. The victory was hard won, a brutal testament to the relentless assault they had endured. Yet, amidst the carnage, a fragile sense of hope flickered, a testament to their perseverance. Anakin Skywalker, his own body aching from the brutal fight, surveyed the scene with a grim expression. The usual youthful exuberance that often characterized him was absent, replaced by a weary solemnity. The weight of the battle, the weight of the losses, pressed heavily upon him. He'd seen friends fall, felt the chilling sting of near-death experiences, and the echoes of those moments still reverberated within him. The battle had left its mark, not just on the battlefield, but on his soul. He looked at Deku, who stood a little distance away, still visibly shaken but radiating an almost unnerving power. The raw energy that thrummed from the young man was palpable, a palpable energy that seemed to crackle in the air around him. Ahsoka, ever vigilant, kept a watchful eye on Deku, her hand resting gently on her lightsaber hilt, a quiet concern etched on her usually bright face. Anakin approached Deku, his steps measured and deliberate. He needed to understand what had happened, to grasp the source of this overwhelming power that seemed to have sprung from within Deku. Deku, Anakin began, his voice low and serious, "We need to talk. What happened out there? That surge of power. It was unlike anything I've ever witnessed." Deku looked at him, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe.
I don't know, Anakin, he stammered, his voice trembling slightly.
It felt like a star ignited inside me. I felt stronger, faster, but it was uncontrollable. I almost couldn't stop myself. He gestured vaguely at his hands, still slightly trembling from the residual energy. Anakin nodded slowly, his own understanding limited. He sensed the raw, untamed power emanating from Deku, a power that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. It was a force of nature, a wild storm unleashed. But even within the chaos, Anakin recognized a potential for unimaginable power, if it could only be harnessed, controlled. "We need to figure this out," Anakin said, his voice firm, a newfound resolve entering his tone. The weight of leadership, a responsibility he hadn't fully embraced before, now settled heavily upon him. He couldn't let grief consume him, he had to act. He had a responsibility towards his allies, to guide them through this chaos, and to understand the immense power that had now entered their lives. The losses they suffered were real, but the potential for more destruction was immense, and they had to move beyond the pain. "Ahsoka," Anakin said, turning to the young Togruta, "help me get the injured to the medical tent. We need to ensure everyone is receiving the care they need. We'll tend to Deku's situation once the immediate situation is stabilized. Deku, you stay here with me for now. We need to observe this power." As Ahsoka swiftly moved among the wounded, tending to their injuries with practiced efficiency, Anakin focused his attention on Deku. He guided Deku into meditation, helping him to find a calm center amid the storm raging within him. He instructed Deku on breathing techniques, ways to channel the energy, to learn to control the wild, untamed storm within. It was a slow, arduous process, a delicate dance between control and surrender, between harnessing the power and avoiding its destructive potential. Anakin drew upon his own years of Jedi training, his own experience with the Force, to guide the young man. Hours passed in this quiet, concentrated effort. The setting sun painted the sky in vibrant hues of orange and purple, a stark contrast to the devastation spread across the battlefield. Gradually, under Anakin's patient guidance, Deku began to find a measure of control over the chaotic power surging within him. The tempest began to subside, the wild energy becoming more manageable, more controlled. As darkness enveloped the battlefield, a new sense of purpose settled over the survivors. The immediate crisis had passed, but the larger conflict remained. Anakin, drawing upon his newfound resolve and a deep understanding of the situation, assembled the remaining members of their force. He was no longer just a skilled warrior, he was a leader, responsible for the well-being and safety of the group he'd fought beside. He spoke with a quiet intensity, his words laced with both experience and empathy, words that recognized their losses but emphasized their strength and the shared commitment to their purpose. He spoke of the importance of unity, of collaboration, and of the need to understand and harness the potent power that resided within Deku. He outlined strategies for the battles to come, recognizing that the future remained uncertain, but also highlighting the newfound potential they now possessed. The shared experiences of the previous battle had forged a bond among them, a strength, a unity that transcended their differences. Anakin's leadership wasn't about barking orders, it was about nurturing a sense of shared purpose, a recognition of their collective power. The night passed under a sky glittering with stars, the silence punctuated only by the distant sounds of the injured and the ever-present crackling of the fires. Anakin, his face etched with fatigue, watched over his companions, a silent guardian, a steady hand guiding them through the darkness. He had faced his own grief and loss, had come to terms with the weight of responsibility, and had emerged stronger, more resolute, than ever before. The battle had claimed much, but it had also forged within him a newfound sense of purpose, of leadership, of hope. The journey ahead was daunting, fraught with peril, but under his guidance, they faced the darkness together. The war was far from over, but under Anakin's reluctant, yet ultimately powerful leadership, they were ready. The first rays of dawn painted the battlefield in hues of blood orange and sickly yellow, illuminating the grim reality of the previous day's fighting. The air, still thick with the smell of burnt flesh and ozone, hung heavy and suffocating. It wasn't just the physical devastation that was shocking, it was the sheer volume of loss. Rows upon rows of fallen clone troopers lay scattered amidst the twisted wreckage of their own weaponry, their armor scarred and dented, silent testaments to a battle fought with brutal ferocity. The Sith soldiers, too, littered the ground, their dark armor marred with blaster scorch marks and lightsaber cuts. The clash had been epic, a maelstrom of energy and violence that had left an indelible scar on the land. Anakin knelt beside a fallen clone trooper, his hand resting gently on the soldier's cold, metallic breastplate. The trooper's face, barely visible beneath the helmet's shattered visor, was frozen in an expression of grim determination. Anakin closed his eyes, offering a silent prayer for the fallen soldier's soul, the weight of his death settling heavily on his heart. This wasn't just another battle. Each fallen soldier represented a life cut short, a family left grieving, a future stolen by the relentless tide of war. The faces of the fallen haunted him. He could almost see them, their youthful energy, their unwavering loyalty, all snuffed out in the merciless chaos. The magnitude of the loss pressed down on him, a heavy blanket of despair threatening to engulf him. Ahsoka, ever observant, approached him, her normally bright eyes shadowed with sorrow. "Master Skywalker," she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur, "we've lost many good men today." She didn't need to elaborate, the sheer scale of the carnage spoke for itself. The battlefield was a macabre tapestry woven from the threads of shattered dreams and broken lives. Anakin nodded, his throat constricting with unshed tears. He had known many of these men, shared laughter and camaraderie with them, faced death alongside them. Now, they were gone, victims of a war that seemed to have no end in sight. He felt a crushing sense of responsibility, a burden of grief that threatened to shatter him. He had trained many of these clone troopers, men he considered almost like brothers. He had watched them grow, watched them mature into seasoned warriors, and now, he had to bear witness to their demise. The search for the missing and the tending to the wounded continued into the late morning. Medic droids zipped between the fallen, their metallic arms whirring as they attempted to salvage what they could. The sounds of their whirring contraptions and the groans of the wounded created a disturbing symphony, a constant reminder of the day's brutal toll. Anakin, Ahsoka, and even Deku, still struggling to control the newfound power within him, moved among the injured, offering comfort and assistance where they could. The sight of Deku, still slightly unsteady but clearly trying his best, filled Anakin with a small amount of hope. It was a reminder that even in the face of profound loss, life continued, pushing forward, albeit battered and bruised. The loss extended beyond the clone troopers. Several Jedi Knights, seasoned warriors, had fallen in the battle, their lightsabers lying silent amongst the debris. Each fallen Jedi represented a wealth of knowledge and experience lost to the war. Their deaths were a blow not only to the Republic but also to the Jedi Order itself. The faces of these fallen knights flickered through Anakin's mind, their smiles, their wisdom, their unwavering dedication. The weight of their loss was immense, a crushing weight that he felt keenly. They had given their lives for a cause they believed in, for peace, for justice, for the Republic. Their sacrifice should not be in vain. As they collected the bodies of the fallen, a grim task that brought home the horrific reality of war, they found a small, tattered Jedi robe clutched in the hand of one of the fallen knights. Within the robe was a small, wooden carving, a tiny, intricately detailed figure of a child. It was a poignant reminder of the lives lost, of the families torn apart, of the future stolen by the conflict. It served as a stark reminder of the humanity at stake in this war, of the innocence and joy that the war had stolen. This small carving became a symbol of their loss, a powerful reminder of the cost of war. The process of identification and preparation of the bodies for burial was both lengthy and emotionally draining. Each fallen soldier or Jedi was treated with respect and dignity, a solemn act that reflected the profound sorrow and admiration they felt for the fallen. Anakin, despite his own grief, led this process with quiet strength and compassion, ensuring every last soldier received a respectful farewell. He reminded those helping that their sacrifice wouldn't be forgotten. Each body was prepared with care and respect, their uniforms cleaned, their belongings gathered and marked. As evening fell, casting long shadows across the battlefield, they held a memorial service for the fallen. The flickering flames of the funeral pyres illuminated their faces, revealing the depth of their sorrow. Ahsoka spoke, her voice choked with emotion, sharing a story of one of the fallen soldiers, highlighting their courage and their unwavering commitment to duty. Anakin, his voice thick with grief, spoke of the sacrifices made, the bonds forged, and the indomitable spirit that should inspire them to continue fighting. Deku, too, stepped forward. His words were few, but they spoke of resilience, of hope, and of the power that resided within, a power that could be channeled to honor the fallen and ensure their sacrifices were not in vain. The somber ceremony ended under the watchful eyes of the stars, the flames casting dancing shadows across their weary faces. The battle's cost was a heavy burden to carry, a stark reminder of the brutal realities of war and the profound sacrifices required to maintain the hope of peace. Yet, amidst the grief and the sorrow, a renewed sense of purpose emerged, a commitment to honor the fallen by continuing the fight, and a shared hope that their sacrifices wouldn't be in vain. The losses would forever shape them, but they would not break them. They would use this grief to fuel their determination, to fight with even greater fervor for a future worth fighting for. The night ended not with despair, but with a silent resolve, a shared commitment to push onward, to continue the fight in the memory of those they had lost. The war was far from over, but their resolve to fight for peace, fueled by the profound sorrow and the memory of their fallen comrades, burned brighter than ever before. Chapter 5, The Final Showdown. The crimson glow of the Sith Lord's lightsaber sliced through the pre-dawn gloom, painting the desolate landscape in a macabre dance of light and shadow. Anakin Skywalker, his own blade humming a counterpoint of defiant blue energy, met the Emperor's gaze. Years of training, of hardship, of loss, culminated in this single, terrifying moment. Beside him, Deku stood, his youthful face grim, his hands radiating a barely contained power that crackled with an unsettling energy, a raw, untamed force that mirrored the chaotic battle raging within him. The air thrummed with the palpable weight of their shared purpose, the weight of a galaxy's fate hanging precariously in the balance. Sidious, his face a mask of cruel amusement, chuckled, a sound like dry leaves skittering across barren ground. So, the chosen one and this interesting addition. You dare to stand against the might of the Emperor? His voice, amplified by the Force, resonated with a chilling power that sought to break their resolve. He was less a man and more a manifestation of pure, malevolent energy. Anakin met his gaze unflinchingly. We fight for the light, Sidious. For hope. For a future you'll never see. His voice, though steady, betrayed a tremor of underlying fear. The task before them was daunting. Facing the Emperor, the architect of the war that had cost them so dearly, was a battle that tested the very limits of their courage. The Emperor's laughter echoed across the barren battlefield. Hope? A childish fantasy. The Force is power, and power belongs to me. With a flick of his wrist, he launched a barrage of Force lightning, crackling bolts of pure energy that tore through the air, seeking to incinerate his enemies. Anakin deflected the bolts with his lightsaber, the blue blade singing a defensive song against the Emperor's furious assault. Deku, however, struggled to maintain his focus. The untamed power within him, still relatively new and unrefined, bucked and surged, threatening to overwhelm him. Anakin saw the struggle in Deku's eyes, the almost imperceptible tremor in his hands. He knew that Deku's power, though immense, was still raw and untamed. It was a force that needed careful channeling, a delicate balance between control and raw energy. He had sensed this power in Deku long before the events leading up to the current conflict and had been meticulously guiding him, helping him to understand and control his abilities. Focus, Deku, Anakin urged, his voice a low growl amidst the clash of lightsabers and the roar of Force lightning. Channel your power. Control the chaos within. He knew that Deku was essential to their plan. His raw power, if properly harnessed, could be the key to defeating the Emperor. Deku gritted his teeth, his face contorted in concentration. He closed his eyes, drawing deep breaths, attempting to still the tempest raging within him. He focused on the fallen, on the friends he had lost, on the weight of their sacrifice. This ignited a renewed sense of determination, and he began to channel his power, shaping it into a focused beam of green energy, a counterpoint to the Emperor's destructive Force lightning. The battle raged on, a terrifying ballet of lightsabers and energy blasts. Anakin's precise movements were a dance of defense and attack, his blade a blur of blue energy, skillfully deflecting the Emperor's relentless assaults. But Deku's raw power was the unexpected wildcard. His green energy beam, though less refined than Anakin's lightsaber techniques, proved to be a potent weapon, capable of disrupting and deflecting the Emperor's Force attacks. The clash of wills was intense, a cosmic struggle between light and darkness that resonated across the battlefield. The ground trembled beneath the weight of their clash, the air thick with the energy of their struggle. Each strike, each parry, sent shockwaves of energy rippling outwards. The earth itself seemed to recoil from the sheer force of their conflict. Anakin, despite his skill, felt the strain of the Emperor's power, the overwhelming pressure of his dark side energies. The Emperor's mastery of the Force was breathtaking, his attacks relentless, his power seemingly limitless. He had faced powerful Sith before, but none like the Emperor, a being whose very essence seemed to be woven from darkness itself. Yet, Anakin refused to yield. He fought with the fury of a man fueled by loss, by the memory of the fallen, by a desperate hope for a future where peace could reign. His movements grew faster, more precise, each strike imbued with the weight of his grief and determination. He pushed through exhaustion and fear, his determination unwavering, driven by a deep-seated need to make a difference, to ensure his sacrifice and those of his fallen comrades wouldn't be in vain. His heart ached for the fallen, for the future threatened by the Emperor's reign, but it was precisely this pain that propelled him forward. Deku, meanwhile, found a rhythm, a strange harmony within the chaos of his power. He learned to channel his emotions, transforming his grief and anger into a weapon of immense power. His green energy beam intensified, becoming more focused, more powerful, a force to be reckoned with. His unrefined energy, though initially a source of concern, now became an unpredictable asset, catching Sidious off guard, forcing the Sith Lord to divert his focus and shift his strategy. The Emperor's confidence wavered, just slightly, a crack in his facade of invincibility. As the battle reached its fever pitch, Anakin saw an opening. He lunged forward, his lightsaber singing a deadly melody, aiming for a critical point in the Emperor's defenses. Simultaneously, Deku unleashed a devastating blast of raw energy, a concentrated wave that crashed against the Emperor, momentarily stunning him. The Emperor staggered, his lightsaber clattered to the ground, the dark glow dimming as he gasped for breath. This was their chance. Anakin moved in for the kill, his lightsaber poised to strike the final blow. But before he could act, a dark energy erupted from Sidious, throwing Anakin off balance. The Emperor was far from defeated, he was only momentarily stunned. As Anakin regained his composure and Deku attempted to help, the Emperor lunged, the darkness engulfing him like a tidal wave. The force of the Emperor's dark energy flung Anakin and Deku back, leaving them both battered and disoriented. It became clear that this wasn't just a battle of skill and power but a contest of wills, a confrontation between the light and the darkness within the Force. And the darkness, it seemed, held many more hidden strengths and layers yet to be revealed. The final showdown was far from over. The fight continued, the outcome uncertain, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. The air crackled with anticipation and fear, as the two young warriors prepared themselves for what lay ahead, a realization that the true battle lay not just in the physical clash but in the deeper, more profound struggle between light and darkness, good and evil, which dwelled within each of them. The Emperor, momentarily staggered, was far from defeated. His eyes, burning with malevolent energy, narrowed as he assessed his adversaries. The raw power Deku wielded had surprised him, a chaotic force he hadn't anticipated. But it was Anakin's unwavering resolve, his refusal to yield, that truly piqued his interest. This wasn't merely a battle of physical strength, it was a clash of wills, a test of their very essence. Sidious, with a guttural snarl, channeled his fury into a wave of dark energy. It slammed into Anakin and Deku, a crushing blow that sent them tumbling across the scorched earth. Anakin, already weary from the relentless assault, felt the darkness seep into his bones, a chilling reminder of the seductive power of the dark side. He fought against it, clinging to the memories of Padme, of his friends, of the hope that fueled his struggle. The pain in his heart, the agony of loss, intensified, yet he refused to succumb. Deku, too, felt the suffocating pressure of the dark side. His untamed power, normally a source of strength, seemed to falter under the weight of the Emperor's malevolence. The green energy within him flickered, threatened by the encroaching darkness. He fought to maintain control, focusing on the faces of his fallen comrades, on their sacrifices, on the future they had fought for. The weight of their deaths spurred him forward, fueling his determination to prevail. The battle shifted. It was no longer a contest of lightsaber skills or raw power, it became a battle of endurance, a test of their willpower. The Emperor, sensing their weakening resolve, began to toy with them, his attacks less direct, more subtle. He aimed to break their spirits, to erode their hope, to force them to succumb to the darkness. Anakin and Deku found themselves battling not only the Emperor but also their own inner demons. Doubt crept in, whispering insidious lies, suggesting surrender, promising an end to the pain. Anakin fought against the temptation to give in, to succumb to the overwhelming despair, picturing the faces of those lost. He held on to the image of Padme's smile, a beacon of light in the encroaching darkness. He remembered her words of encouragement, her unwavering faith in him. Her unwavering belief in the light was the fuel that kept his hope burning. Deku, too, wrestled with his inner turmoil. His emotions, normally the source of his power, now threatened to overwhelm him. He battled the fear and self-doubt, clinging to his training, to the lessons Anakin had instilled in him. He reminded himself of his purpose, of the sacrifices made to reach this point, to prevent the inevitable if the darkness prevailed. He saw in his mind's eye the faces of his friends, their unwavering hope and faith in him, and focused his will to overcome his doubts and fears. The Emperor's laughter echoed across the battlefield, a sound that grated on their nerves, a mockery of their suffering. "Give in," he hissed, his voice a venomous whisper that pierced their minds. "Embrace the power of the dark side. It will grant you the strength you seek, the peace you crave." Anakin felt the seductive whisper of the dark side, the promise of power and escape from the burden of pain. But the memories of his past, of the horrors he had witnessed, of the choices he had made, kept him tethered to the light. The thought of betraying the values he believed in repulsed him. He would not yield. Deku, too, felt the pull of the dark side, the allure of its forbidden power. But the faces of his friends, their sacrifices, their hope, anchored him to the light. He knew that giving in would not only betray them but also condemn the galaxy to a far worse fate. He pushed back against the darkness, his resolve hardening with every passing moment. The battle continued, a grueling contest of wills. The Emperor, recognizing their resilience, intensified his attacks, seeking to wear them down physically and emotionally. He bombarded them with waves of dark energy, each strike aimed at breaking their spirits. He unleashed bursts of force lightning, and he used his mastery of the Force to manipulate the environment around them, causing rocks and debris to fall. Anakin and Deku fought back, their bodies battered, their spirits tested, yet their determination unbroken. They used every ounce of strength, every tactical advantage, to withstand the Emperor's relentless assault. Anakin deflected the Force lightning with his lightsaber while Deku used his raw power to disrupt the Emperor's attacks. They fought as one, each supporting the other, their combined strength forming a bulwark against the overwhelming power of the Emperor. Their fight transcended the physical realm. It was a battle waged in the depths of their souls, a test of their faith and their willpower. They faced not only the external threat of the Emperor but also the internal struggle against despair and doubt. They clung to hope, a fragile flame in the face of overwhelming darkness. This was a fight for not just their survival but for the survival of the galaxy, for the future of hope itself. Their resilience became a powerful weapon against the Emperor's machinations, their determination a force stronger than any lightsaber or power blast. The clash continued long into the night, each strike and parry echoing through the desolate landscape. The Emperor grew increasingly frustrated, his plans thwarted by the resilience of his opponents. He underestimated the power of their belief, their unwavering commitment to hope. He had expected their will to crumble under the weight of his power, but they held firm. Their resolve, fueled by their pain and commitment to the light, was proving to be an insurmountable obstacle. Their combined strength, a testament to the strength of their bond and belief, surprised and frustrated the Emperor, pushing him to reveal more and more of his formidable power. Finally, as dawn approached, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a subtle shift occurred. The Emperor, weary of his protracted battle, made one final, desperate attempt to crush their spirits. He unleashed a torrent of dark energy, intending to overwhelm them completely. But Anakin and Deku, battered but unbowed, stood their ground. They met the onslaught with a combined force that surprised even themselves. Their strength, born from shared loss, fueled by their commitment to hope, transcended their physical limitations. The clash of energies was earth-shattering. The very ground trembled, the sky above them convulsed. In that moment, the Emperor felt a tremor of doubt, a flicker of uncertainty that had never before touched him. For the first time, he was confronted with something beyond his complete control, something far greater than his mastery of the dark side, the indomitable spirit of two warriors whose wills would not be broken. Their shared determination, their combined hope, had become a force powerful enough to challenge even the seemingly limitless power of the Emperor. The true battle had begun, and the outcome was far from certain. The Emperor's final assault was a maelstrom of dark energy, a tempest of raw, malevolent power. It ripped through the ravaged landscape, tearing apart the very fabric of reality. Anakin and Deku, their bodies screaming in protest, braced themselves against the onslaught. Anakin's lightsaber hummed frantically, a desperate counterpoint to the Emperor's furious onslaught. Deku, his green energy crackling and sputtering, struggled to maintain his focus, his vision blurring under the sheer force of the attack. The air crackled with energy, the very ground beneath their feet dissolving into molten rock. Anakin felt the familiar tug of the dark side, the seductive whisper promising escape from the agony, the power to crush the Emperor beneath his heel. But the memory of Padme's gentle touch, the image of her radiant smile, held him firm. He wouldn't succumb. Not now. Not ever. Deku, sensing Anakin's struggle, channeled the last reserves of his strength. He saw, in a flash of precognitive vision, a future consumed by darkness, a galaxy plunged into eternal night. The faces of All Might, Uraka, and the rest of his fallen comrades flashed before his eyes, their sacrifices, their hopes, fueled his determination. He roared, a sound of defiance that echoed across the ravaged landscape, and unleashed a wave of pure, unadulterated one for all. The clash of energies was cataclysmic. The world seemed to momentarily cease to exist, swallowed by the raw power of two opposing forces. Then, a silence, heavy and pregnant with tension, descended. When the dust settled, a vast crater scarred the earth. Anakin lay broken, his body battered, his lightsaber shattered. But Deku stood, slightly wounded, but alive. The Emperor, stunned by the sheer force of their combined resistance, felt a tremor of genuine fear for the first time in millennia. He had underestimated them. He had underestimated the power of hope. Anakin coughed, a ragged sound that tore through the silence. He looked at Deku, his eyes filled with a profound sadness, but also an overwhelming sense of peace. He knew his time was short. The Emperor's attack had torn through his very being, leaving him teetering on the brink of death. Yet, a faint smile touched his lips. He had protected Deku, he had protected the world. His purpose was fulfilled. Deku, Anakin whispered, his voice barely audible, You must carry on. Deku rushed to Anakin's side, his heart pounding in his chest. Anakin. We have to get you out of here. Anakin shook his head weakly. No. There's no time. The Emperor. He'll be back. But you have to. He reached out a trembling hand, placing it on Deku's shoulder. A surge of energy, the last flicker of his dying light, flowed into Deku. It wasn't a power transfer, not in the way Deku was used to, but something more profound, a legacy, a transfer of unwavering hope. Anakin's spirit, his essence, infused Deku's very being, strengthening his resolve, solidifying his commitment to the light. Remember. Hope. Never. Give up. Anakin's voice faded, his grip loosening. He closed his eyes, a peaceful smile gracing his lips. His breathing slowed, then ceased entirely. Deku knelt beside Anakin's lifeless body, tears streaming down his face. The weight of Anakin's sacrifice settled upon him, a heavy burden, but also a source of immense strength. Anakin's unwavering belief in the light, his selfless act of protecting his student, resonated deeply within him. Anakin's sacrifice was not merely the end of a life, it was a testament to the enduring power of love and selflessness. He had faced the ultimate darkness, not with vengeance or hatred, but with compassion and unwavering hope. He had chosen to sacrifice himself to protect the future, and this heroic act, this ultimate act of selflessness, would inspire generations to come. The Emperor, having witnessed Anakin's sacrifice, felt a cold dread creep into his heart. This selfless act, this demonstration of unwavering hope, was far more dangerous than any physical attack. The light, embodied in Anakin's final act, was a threat far greater than his dark side power could hope to contain. It was a testament to the human spirit, a force that transcended even his mastery of the dark side. He had defeated Anakin, yes, but in doing so he had ignited a flame within Deku, a flame that burned brighter, stronger, fueled by Anakin's unwavering spirit, a spirit that continued to resonate in the Force, long after his death. He had created a successor who now carried not just Anakin's fighting prowess, but also his unwavering hope. The Emperor sensed a growing fear, a realization that the battle was far from over. The true conflict had just begun. Deku stood, his body trembling, but his spirit ablaze. He looked at Anakin's body, his face streaked with tears but his eyes burning with a fierce determination. He would carry on, not just for Anakin, but for everyone who had fallen, for the future of the galaxy, for the hope that burned so brightly within his heart. He would continue to fight for the light, he would continue to believe in the goodness within others, even when confronted with seemingly insurmountable odds. He raised his fists, the green energy within him pulsing with renewed vigor. He felt the strength of Anakin's spirit flowing through him, fueling his own power. He wouldn't let Anakin's sacrifice be in vain. He would honor his memory by fighting with even greater ferocity, with even greater unwavering hope. He would fight for a future where such sacrifice was not necessary, for a future where hope prevailed over darkness. He felt Anakin's presence, not as a ghost, but as a guide, a steadfast ally fighting beside him from beyond the veil of death. The Emperor, watching this transformation, a transformation he couldn't comprehend, felt a chill run down his spine. He realized then, with terrifying clarity, that he had underestimated the power of hope. He had underestimated the human spirit. And he had underestimated Deku, who now stood as the embodiment of light, ready to face him, fueled by the sacrifice of his mentor and the unwavering hope for a better future. The final battle had begun, and the outcome was uncertain. But one thing was clear, the Emperor was no longer fighting Anakin. He was fighting the legacy of Anakin Skywalker, a legacy stronger, more powerful, and more enduring than any dark side power. The war for the galaxy, the war for hope, was far from over. The Emperor, a silhouette of malevolent power against the ravaged landscape, let out a chilling laugh that echoed across the desolate expanse. The death of Anakin Skywalker, a blow he'd anticipated with grim satisfaction, had left him feeling strangely unsettled. This wasn't the clean, decisive victory he'd craved. He'd expected a final, desperate struggle, a display of raw, uncontrolled power from the Jedi, but instead, he'd witnessed something far more potent, the quiet strength of sacrifice, a light that burned brighter in its extinction. Deku stood, a solitary figure against the backdrop of destruction. His uniform was torn, his body a canvas of bruises and cuts, but his posture was unwavering. The green energy within him, once flickering and weak, now pulsed with a renewed, almost ferocious intensity. It wasn't just one for all, it was the combined force of one for all and the unwavering spirit of Anakin Skywalker, a legacy etched into the very core of his being. The Emperor, sensing the shift in power, felt a prickle of unease. He had underestimated Deku. He had underestimated the enduring power of hope, the resilience of the human spirit, the strength born of sacrifice. He had expected weakness, despair, a collapse into the overwhelming grief of Anakin's loss. Instead, he found himself facing a warrior reborn, fueled by a fire that burned brighter than any lightsaber, a determination forged in the crucible of loss and sacrifice. Deku didn't rush. He didn't charge blindly into the fray. He took a deep breath, focusing his energy, drawing on the lessons Anakin had instilled in him, lessons that transcended simple combat techniques. He recalled Anakin's unwavering belief in the good, his unwavering commitment to hope, even in the face of overwhelming odds. He remembered the quiet moments of shared training, the intense battles, the quiet conversations about the weight of responsibility, about the importance of never giving up, even when the darkness seemed insurmountable. The Emperor launched his attack, a barrage of dark energy that ripped through the air, leaving trails of scorched earth in its wake. But Deku was ready. He moved with a grace and precision that surprised even himself, a fluidity born not just from rigorous training but from a profound understanding of the Force, a kinship with the very energy that flowed through the galaxy. He deflected the dark energy blasts with precise movements, his body a conduit for the potent power within him. It was a dance of death, a ballet of light and darkness, a symphony of opposing forces. Each strike, each block, each parry was a testament to Deku's growth. He wasn't just fighting the Emperor, he was fighting the darkness within himself, the doubt that had threatened to consume him, the fear of failure that had haunted him. Anakin's sacrifice had not only empowered him but had also purified him, forging him into the hero he was always meant to be. The battle raged, a whirlwind of energy and light, a maelstrom of raw power. The ground trembled, the air crackled with energy, and the very fabric of reality seemed to bend under the strain. But Deku held firm, his resolve unshaken. He moved with Anakin's spirit guiding him, with Anakin's unwavering belief in him fueling his every move. Each time the Emperor unleashed a devastating attack, Deku would meet it with an even greater surge of power, his green energy blazing like a beacon in the heart of the storm. The Emperor, growing increasingly frustrated, unleashed his most powerful attack, a torrent of pure dark energy, a wave of destruction that threatened to engulf the entire planet. But Deku was ready. He had seen this attack coming, a precognitive flash, a vision granted to him by Anakin's legacy. He had anticipated it, prepared for it, and he met it head on. He channeled every ounce of his strength, every bit of one for all, every ounce of Anakin's unwavering hope, into a single, devastating counterattack. The combined energies collided, a cataclysmic explosion of light and darkness. The world was consumed by blinding light, a blinding white that threatened to overwhelm the senses. Then, silence. When the light subsided, a deafening silence descended. The ground was scorched, the air thick with the smell of ozone, but the Emperor lay broken, his form dissolving, his power shattered. He had underestimated the power of hope, the resilience of the human spirit, the strength born of sacrifice. He had underestimated Deku. Deku stood, exhausted but victorious. He looked out at the ravaged landscape, the silence punctuated only by the gentle whisper of the wind. He had won, not just the battle, but the war. He had defeated the Emperor, the embodiment of darkness, and in doing so, he had secured a future of hope. He had proven that even in the face of insurmountable odds, even when darkness threatens to engulf everything, hope, fueled by sacrifice and determination, always prevails. He knelt, the weight of victory settling upon him, but also the weight of the sacrifices that had been made. He thought of Anakin, of All Might, of Uraka, of all those who had fought and fallen in the name of hope. He felt their strength, their spirit, their unwavering belief in the light, flowing through him. Their sacrifices had not been in vain. He rose, his body trembling, but his spirit soaring. He looked toward the setting sun, a symbol of a new dawn, a new beginning. The galaxy had been saved, not by a single hero, but by the combined efforts of many, by the indomitable spirit of hope that burned brightly in the hearts of all those who had fought for a better future. The final showdown was over, but Deku knew, this was only the beginning of a new era, An era of rebuilding, of healing, of ensuring that the sacrifices made in the name of hope would never be forgotten. The victory was bittersweet, but the hope for the future burned brighter than ever before. And Deku, the embodiment of that hope, stood ready to lead the galaxy towards a brighter tomorrow. The victory was his, a victory fueled by sacrifice, resilience and the enduring power of hope. It was a victory that would echo through the ages, inspiring generations to come to face their own darkness and emerge victorious. The silence was profound, broken only by the ragged gasps of Deku's own breathing and the whisper of the wind whistling through the skeletal remains of what had once been a thriving city. The air crackled with residual energy, a tangible reminder of the cataclysmic clash that had just transpired. The Emperor, that looming shadow of darkness, was gone. Reduced to nothing but shimmering dust particles that dispersed into the wind, his malevolent energy extinguished like a dying ember. Deku felt the weight of the victory settle upon him, heavy and profound. It wasn't the triumphant exhilaration he might have expected. Instead, a weary exhaustion clung to him, a physical and emotional fatigue that mirrored the ravaged landscape surrounding him. His body ached, every muscle screaming in protest, but the pain was insignificant compared to the weight of the responsibility now resting squarely on his shoulders. He looked down at his hands, still glowing faintly with the residual green energy of One for All, the power of countless heroes coursing through his veins. The energy was fading, receding back to the source, leaving him feeling strangely empty, yet strangely complete. Anakin's spirit, which had been a guiding light throughout the battle, had retreated, leaving behind a quiet peace. The connection was still there, a faint warmth in his chest, but it was no longer the vibrant, ever-present force it had been during the fight. He rose slowly, his movements deliberate, each step a victory over the physical toll of the battle. The ground beneath his feet was scorched and cracked, the landscape a testament to the devastating power unleashed during the final showdown. He scanned the horizon, taking in the scope of the destruction, the vast extent of the damage inflicted by the Emperor's reign of terror. It was a scene of devastation, a stark reminder of the price that had been paid for freedom. But amidst the ruins, he saw glimmers of hope. A lone flower pushing its way through a crack in the scorched earth, a tenacious symbol of life's resilience. Far off, he could make out the faint flicker of lights, signs of life re-emerging from the shadows, tentative signs of a community rebuilding. It was a fragile hope, but it was there, and it was enough. The immediate aftermath was a blur of activity. Rescue teams, survivors emerging from hiding, the faint sounds of rebuilding already echoing through the ravaged city. Deku, despite his exhaustion, found himself drawn to the task of helping, offering assistance wherever he could. He used his enhanced strength and speed to clear debris, lift heavy objects, offering support to those left wounded and broken. He found himself offering small words of comfort, small gestures of hope, to those who had lost so much. The next few weeks were dedicated to the immense task of recovery and rebuilding. The galaxy was slowly beginning to heal, but the scars of the conflict would remain, etched deep into the memory of countless worlds. Deku, now recognized as a galactic hero, became a symbol of hope and resilience. His leadership was not one of forceful command, but of gentle guidance, inspiring others with his unwavering belief in the possibility of a better future. He worked alongside countless individuals, assisting with rebuilding efforts, sharing his unique abilities to help restore damaged infrastructure. He became a living symbol of unity, an advocate for rebuilding trust and understanding across the galaxy. But the victory was bittersweet. The celebrations were muted, shadowed by the immense losses suffered during the war. Memorial services were held, remembering the sacrifices of countless heroes who had fallen in the fight against the Emperor. Deku attended every ceremony he could, offering his condolences and support to the families of the fallen. He felt their presence, their sacrifices, a constant weight and inspiration on his journey. He dedicated his days to supporting those who remained, leading efforts to rebuild shattered communities, providing support and resources to those in need. He took the time to help to teach others, sharing the wisdom and techniques he had learned from All Might and Anakin Skywalker, ensuring the knowledge and skills to protect and aid would remain relevant for generations to come. His teachings transcended simple fighting styles, they encompassed the importance of empathy, compassion, and the crucial role of hope in the face of despair. In the quiet moments, when the demands of leadership eased, Deku would often find himself revisiting the memories of his training with Anakin. The lessons Anakin had imparted weren't just about mastering combat techniques, but about embracing hope, resilience, and understanding. He recalled Anakin's quiet strength, his unwavering commitment to justice, even in the face of overwhelming darkness. These were the lessons that resonated most profoundly, the guiding principles that continued to shape his actions and inspire his decisions in the aftermath of the war. The rebuilding process was slow and arduous, a gradual healing that mirrored the emotional journey of the galaxy as a whole. There were moments of frustration and setbacks, but Deku's unwavering resolve acted as a beacon, lighting the way forward for those who had lost their way. He remained committed to creating a galaxy where the sacrifices made were never forgotten, a place where peace and understanding would triumph over hatred and conflict. The victory over Darth Sidious was not simply a culmination of a conflict, it was the beginning of a new era, an era of hope, healing, and rebuilding. Deku, the symbol of that hope, stood ready to guide the galaxy towards a brighter tomorrow, forever changed by the war but resolute in his commitment to building a better future for all. The echoes of the final showdown would linger, but it is the echoes of hope and resilience that would resonate most strongly, inspiring generations to come. Deku's leadership extended beyond the simple act of protecting. It encompassed the intricate work of nurturing hope, fostering peace, and ensuring the sacrifices were never forgotten, a testament to the enduring power of hope and the resilience of the human spirit. His legacy would not only be that of a hero who defeated the greatest evil, but also of a leader who guided his people towards a brighter tomorrow, a true symbol of the unwavering spirit of hope that had survived the darkest of times. The journey was far from over, but Deku, guided by the spirits of those who had fallen and fueled by the enduring hope of a brighter future, stepped into the new dawn with his unwavering gaze set towards the future. The final showdown had concluded, however, for Deku, this marked the commencement of his most significant undertaking.